meeting to order, but I don't know how to set this.
Okay.
So now you gotta do it again.
Yeah.
Battery good?
Good evening, call this meeting to order. I'm Beverly Fickus, the chair. The meeting is April 19th, 2023, and it's 6 o'clock. We have with us this evening Director Terry Lincoln, Director Scott McVeigh, Director Erwin Fuss, General Manager Paul Kelly, and our Administrative Assistant Kayla Falk. So thank you everyone for coming this evening. If you would all stand up and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Oh, I did the roll call before that.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. I was over here.
Well, maybe we should do that the other way, I don't know. Whatever.
It's okay, you did
Okay.
both.
We want to talk about the selection of the vice chair, which is up, and I have a comment from over on this side of the house.
Why are we, would like to move the review of the application for the director and the appointment of the director up. They've always, in the past, they've always done it first thing in the meeting, and
Good idea.
Well, I would say that, looking in the past, what I've seen is, the reviewing applications and appointment has always been the first item of new business. And so that's why it's on there. So I believe selection of chair and vice chair should always be at the roll call, but you don't have to do that at this time. Obviously, you can wait until you've done the selection. But if you'd like to hold open comment, open time, consent until item 6B, that is the discretion of the board.
Would you like to just perhaps move the selection after the application after B? And do the consent agenda without that, or are you wanting to go ahead and do the applications right now?
I think we should do the applications first thing.
Yeah, let's do it, get it over with.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can I ask for a point of order? Should we be doing that before the open public time though? Which is typically your very first thing in the meeting.
Right, we'll do the open time and then do,
Okay.
I'm happy with doing it that way. You okay with it that way? Okay. So we are going to go with open time right now, public comment. Is there anyone wishing to speak at this time about any item not on the agenda?
Dennis is on the list first.
Yeah, we have Dennis and Sandy on the list, so.
Ladies first.
Okay, thank you for the compliment. As usual, I want to announce that we're having another Firewise meeting, April 27th, 6 o'clock down at the Community Center. Our speaker will be Aaron Hathaway. He's with CAL FIRE. I've attended his lecture before, and it's really informative. He talked for about an hour. It's not just defensible space, it's home hardening, it's everything we need to know about getting our community ready for the wildfires, so we hopefully will not have.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, yeah, Dennis.
Okay. Yes, I'm Dennis, Hosan. I got a couple of things. First thing, of course, we all know the Trinity Lake is down. And it sounds like we have plenty of water this year, or the Bureau is going to give us plenty of water, hopefully. But it's still kind of a concern because you're letting out more and more water constantly for the salmon and whatnot, and salmon populations are way down. So there's going to be a long-term push to try to build up salmon populations. year is drier than normal, and Attorney Lake has been drawn down, way down, that we're gonna take the brunt of it, you know, and it's getting so, every single year, it doesn't matter if it rains or not, we don't know if we're gonna get any water for the year. Or little, or we just don't know, it's ridiculous. And I find it, a little bit difficult that the annual rainfall is, way above normal. The snowpack is way above, almost double normal, and yet they're calling a shortage policy on our water deliveries and cutting us back a little. Now, that may change, maybe we'll get full allotment later on. But currently, we're being, you know, not given the full amount. But during the year, when we have plenty of water, so it's difficult for me to see that they can call it a shortage. So that's that topic. The second topic is, when the drought is done, which I think you folks are gonna vote on that tonight, and do away with the drought, policy, the ag rates for, the agricultural, folks, that's a dime over what the domestic rate is. But if you look at the current cost, it's the same, or the ag might be just slightly, just a cent or something cheaper than the domestic. So, it seems like that you have to drop that, the ag rate down to so it's roughly the same as the domestic. And I think you can drop the rates and not get stuck with going through a hearing. If you raise rates, you have to do the hearing, but I think you can drop them. But currently, that chart, the ag rate is down over.
So when we get to that topic, please have a good discussion in regards to that, because we are looking at the charges are actually higher for the water rate, and it only takes a 30-day notice. And so that's what we did last month. And so your rates are gonna go down. They're gonna be a difference of a penny, but they're not going to be the 37 and 47. Okay, they're gonna be 71 cents and 72 cents. And that's based upon Bill's calculations on what the actual cost of the water, I believe.
Okay. That's good, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So the other thing, his comments though, Paul, is if we could possibly, request that Don Bader or someone from his team to please come and talk to us about Trinity River, because that's really important. You know, there are things on Facebook that people are saying that TRRP is just a wonderful site in regards to what they can and can't do. But there's so many questions that Dennis brought up, very good points about our water, and is it really our water from Trinity? So I would love to have him here where we could, you know, glean a little bit more information.
Emily Rankin, and I would just like to publicly thank Paul for all his hard work and endeavor. He keeps right on shoveling through the piles and finding issues and resolutions to the problem, trying to set everything in order here. And I just want to thank him very much for that. And I also want to thank the staff in that endeavor also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we thank Emily as our volunteer for all the hard work she's doing helping us out.
Okay, anyone else for open time, public comments? Okay, so we are going to go to review the applications for.
6B.
No.
6B, yes.
What do you mean, no?
We're doing consent agenda?
No.
No, we're not following this then.
No,
Okay, so we're gonna move consent down below?
we're gonna do 6B first.
Okay.
6B and the selection of vice chair.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Six, okay, just so it's clear, maybe for everybody, and okay, so we're gonna go, 6B,
Fair enough.
then we're gonna go and do 3A, and then we'll do 5,
yes,
6, and continue with the agenda from there.
right.
All right, okay.
So I just wanna ask, is Dwayne in the audience anywhere?
I don't
So- And it very clearly states on the application that they must be present. And so
We have one application.
then we have one application to look at, okay?
Real quick though, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, just as you can see from the memo, just a quick reminder, we had a resignation, we had a vacancy, we have a, Government Code 1680 that, basically has the district, has 60 days, to appoint someone, and you know, you just restated the rest, but I just want to give a little quick background on that. It was posted on all of the public locations as well as on our website in compliance with that government code. And then, of course, here you have your applications for your review. We do have the oath of office and affidavits ready, so whenever you've made your selection, we'll make a pause, as mentioned in this, in the background, for the chair to administer the oath, sign the document, and then your new director can be seated, and we can proceed on with the
Okay. Okay, Pam, would you like to come up and, talk to us a little bit about yourself and what your goals are for the district, thought processes?
My name is Pam Beaver, legal name is Patricia. I've been involved with a volunteer committee for about the last 2.5 years, trying to get our rates so that they weren't increased so drastically, and then from then on to see what some of the problems were within and are within the district, and see how we can fix them. Previously, I'm a retired nurse. I was a consultant and had 12 buildings underneath me in which I hired and trained nurses. So I am aware of hiring and firing and things that are legal. And I also have been involved in other leadership. I've lived out here in Happy Valley for 35 years, and know that this is a problem that we have to get fixed.
Any directors have questions for Pam?
I do. What do you see yourself bringing to the board?
One of the things that, to be honest with you, drives me crazy is to talk about something and talk about something and not do anything. So one of the things that I do expect is action. And the other thing that I do bring to the board is the desire to make this district better, and that we would become financially sound. I have done lots of accounting work and am familiar with that. Also familiar with being a leader, and that's what I can bring.
Just a comment, but not a question, and I think actually everybody that's here knows that for the last 2.5, 3 years, you've been part of us investigating and checking things out, and it's not like you're just coming in cold to this, to the board, it would be that you've already got a lot of the information of what's been going on and what's happening, so that's very much appreciated. So, everyone, any questions?
No, no question.
Okay. Any?
Another, I do.
Sure.
Do you have any particular things that you would like to tackle if you're selected to be on the board?
I also agree with what Dennis said, is I would like to see the agricultural rate become, more feasible, so that we're not getting rid of all of our people who do agriculture out here. That to me is important.
Discussion. All right.
That is important.
Unfortunately, you've got to charge what the rate is, so you can't subsidize, but that doesn't mean that we can look at all avenues of how you can address it. Yes?
Madam Chair, just, since this is an item on our business item, once you've finished interviewing the candidate, you should officially open it for any public comment.
Good.
And then close that, and then make a decision amongst yourselves.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Pam, and we'll, okay, sir. So we'll close the interview process with Pam. Is there anyone from the public that would like to ask a question or speak? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the board for your pleasure.
I nominate Van Beaver.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
All right,
Come on,
So,
you get
if
signed
you
in.
don't mind, can we take a quick pause?
Okay.
Rocky.
Where you go, Pam?
Stand up and do like stretching.
I do realize now that I'm glad you printed it larger, because it's just kind of small. But we have the document. So just, before you administer that, I'd like to just, so in case you haven't seen in the packet, these affidavits are the administer of the oath by our chair. But there's also a section here that says, I, Beverly Fickus, the chairwoman of the Clear Creek, hereby certify that at the regular meeting that Pam was appointed and then signed, right? So we'll have all that stuff. That goes off to the county clerk as well. So, Madam Chair.
Okay, you do that, so Maria, please raise your right hand. So I state your name,
I, Pam Beaver,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
All right.
We have 4 members of our original CCCSD. It really does sound good.
Oh, you want the blue?
Now, do you turn that into the county clerk?
We teach it.
Yes.
You don't, yeah, you don't have to, she doesn't have to go around the county clerk.
No.
No, It's only if you get elected and certified by the elector,
Then
then you gotta go there.
Yeah.
This is ceremony.
Yeah.
This is more than ceremony, this is,
Yeah.
and so we keep a copy.
This is the documentation that shows.
Okay, welcome aboard. All right, so now we are going to go back up to 3A, selection of a vice chair.
Madam Chairman, I nominate Terry.
I have a motion to nominate Terry Lincoln for vice chair. Any other discussion? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion to select Terry, nominate Terry for vice chair, and a second from Pam Beaver. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Motion carried?
Wasn't sure if you were.
Didn't quite do it the right way. Well, congratulations, Terry.
Thanks.
Where's your little finger?
Yeah, not a director anymore. And then there's the no-name director.
Okay, so we have on the consent agenda, we're down to the consent agenda. So we have minutes from the board from, first, let me just ask, is there anything that anybody needs to take off of this, or we need to have some further discussion about it?
We changed the name, put Wogan in there.
Yeah.
That's the only
Okay.
thing.
So we have the minutes from the board of March 8th, the special meeting, the planning and steering committee of 3/1, and we've got paid bills. Kayla, I told Paul, I no longer have a conflict with Smalley, Reese, and Wiseman, so I will be making a full vote. So then we have the payroll and we have activity reports.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we can take questions and leave them on consent, but I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments. We were not able to quite finish the March 15th regular meeting minutes, since that was a fairly long meeting and there's a lot of things that have been going on, but Kayla's almost done with that. I would want to mention that, Dennis came and spoke at the March 8th special meeting, regarding the Fire Safe Council grant applications. You, as stated in the minutes, were able to put that on and gave me directions. I just want to report that that was done. Dennis picked them up. So all that was accomplished at that meeting. There's, on page 3, there was a public comment from Pauline, and we have it down as Waterham, and I'm not sure if that's.
Walkman, yeah, I've already given it to
We've already-
Kayla, yeah.
As long as you got that, take
Yep.
care of it. Just wanted to make sure it was in public, that that's been amended, so I'm gonna suggest that you, when you approve this, as
amended.
corrected, I guess might be a better way to describe it. Also, on the list, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about it, but on the payables, you can see that we've made one of our WIN Act payments on there. The other one is the tax and fee administration, 20,000. That is actually the water rights fee that I described to you before, that after litigation and a lot of grumbling, and there's gonna continue to be grumbling that we pay. But that's not the other one, which is the drinking water one that's based on the number of connections.
Yeah.
So we'll differentiate that, and as we budget in the future, we'll work on that one. And I just wanted to mention, there's the NTU, that's the chemicals and coagulants for up in the treatment plant in particular. So there you go, on those. And then we're gonna see it later in the agenda on item D, which is when we look at our 3-month, each month, so 3 quarters of our budget to actuals. But I just wanted to mention, especially for Director Fuss, that in the in the list of activity reports, you'll see the property tax payment that came in January. It wasn't previously identified, but you'll see it there, and you'll see it as a subsequent.
We should get another one this month.
Probably May.
Yeah.
Because everything's, late is April 10th, so they usually take 30 to 45 days to get that. Yeah.
And it was, significantly higher than was in the budget, the amount we received, so.
And knock on wood, that means the next one is gonna be so too.
I want to take just a pause. Are you Dwayne?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Heart attack number 2.
Yeah.
All right, any other
We got this
questions?
on time.
Well, yes, you do, but I was
Yeah.
gonna have to, I did have one thing on March 1st minutes, page 2, and it was item number 6. Terry S. Paul. I didn't quite understand what that sentence meant. Terry S. Paul and him and his staff take a look at the roles of the general manager and bookkeeper, take a look at the roles and update, and give recommendations on changes.
Yeah, I didn't understand that one either.
Yeah. So it's just,
I don't know, the minutes recorder?
so it's on the March 1st minutes.
I think what I asked was that you have them, that you and the staff look at all of that and make recommendations, which is what you said, we're gonna have a planning and steering committee, and you did,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, we need to, make that a complete sentence that actually makes sense.
Yeah, just amend it to,
Minor detail.
just to clarify, just to clear it up a little bit,
And
okay?
that is correct, yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, so anybody else have any questions in regards to the,
I have one comment
okay?
on, under number 5 in the finance, or in the planning and steering, I work with the tribes, not for the tribes.
Okay. Which minutes were those?
The planning and
March
steering,
1st, oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's down there on
Okay.
numbers 5-3, 5A3.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else with questions on the activity reports or any of the finance paperwork? We had just the paid bills and activity reports from January to March.
I, really appreciate the activity reports in QuickBooks.
Yeah,
I
I
spell out line items really nicely.
thank you for that, and I think, as you'll see in item D, it's probably easier to more talk about it there. As the finance committee knows, and I was gonna mention this in D, but I'll just mention it here, we're still refining these reports to make them as accurate as possible, but the clarity on them is much better.
So we aren't going to, yeah, we are, quarterly, budget stuff, I'll bring up that comment about, yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Can you tell me what the leasing, the Quadrant Leasing USA is?
Yes, that is our, folding machine, folding, stuffing, and, machine, and the postage. So that number is a combined lease and postage cost. And, I think I probably should wait so we don't take too much time, but when we get to item D, which is our finance report, as you see in my memo at the end, there's a discussion about the challenges we have related to people paying and sort of things that we could look at to do a better job following them up. But one of the things that I think we need to look at is the cost of the leases on this folding machine and people time and all the rest to send out our bills versus getting a mail house to do it. So this is costing with the lease, postage, all the rest, and the cost of paper and envelopes, you know, there's probably $1 something, we've got it in a chart right now, per piece, and I think we could probably get it for a better rate elsewhere.
When's the lease up?
I believe it's, coming up soon, I think the end of this fiscal year, so that's the other reason why we're looking at potentially changing that.
Anyone else with anything regarding the consent agenda?
Move approval, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda from Director Fust and a second from Director McVeigh.
And by the way, that's a motion to approve with correction.
With correction.
Yes.
That's what we heard.
Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
Thank you. Madam Chair, item 6A is our old business item. As you know, the district was sent from the Bureau of Finance back in October, was the first time I believe it was on our agenda, maybe it was September, that there was a bunch of account reconciliations and there was a lot of confusion because the numbers didn't add up. So we are still in conversations with them. They have not given us anything more definitive or clear on that. But I did want to use this opportunity, as other Bureau things that we give updates on related to the Bureau. I think, you know, Dennis's comment, and if the board wants to, more active participation with them on other things, as well as, you know, I've got in my notes, we'll ask again to have a Bureau person here to give us an update. But I had reported to, and I wanted to include in this agenda packet, our conversations related to the WIN Act, and just provide, just a little bit of background, and again, the Finance Committee is going to be working more on this in their next meeting. But the WIN Act, just as a reminder, we refer to it as the WIN Act. This is a tool that took the district's contract for $15,300 and converted it into really a perpetual contract because the WIN Act was actually money allocated to pay off the district's obligations for all of the infrastructure needed. And I will just say, just because we've talked about rates, that's why the TBD thing stays in that rate sheet and eventually will be no longer, because once you pay this off, you paid off your construction costs on some of those items.
And we, just for the audience, as clarification, the infrastructure was the Central Valley project,
Yes.
not our infrastructure.
No.
Just
Very good. Thank you, Director McVeigh. Yes, this is all the Bureau's Central Valley project. We're as a contractor under the Central Valley project. In the WIN Act, it's statutorily required that 3 years from the time of signing the agreement that you have to pay off that obligation. So the WIN Act takes money from the federal government, our tax dollars, gives it to the Bureau, and it's basically a low-interest loan, and we're paying off the WIN Act amounts. So in December of 2020, the district board approved that contract and signed that contract, and that started your 3-year clock. By September of 2021, the district had not made any payments on that ultimate amount. So the then chair and Bill, the acting general manager, met with the Bureau in September of 2021, and they said, okay, why don't we take, there was a credit the district had based on a bunch of calculations of $207,000. And they said, can you give us that credit as our payment for December of 2020 till now? And then give us a calculation of what we owe and what we make payments on between now and then. So that's what they did. the Bureau then put that number into their little spreadsheet. And this is back now, we can take a look at Exhibit D. And so the calculation support line item, they put in, they just said, okay, today's date, 9/1, I think it was 9/20/2021, this is what we agreed to. Their little spreadsheet said, oh, anything that's in there, that's the contract date, they added 3 years to it. So they then printed out an Exhibit D that had the final payment due at the end of 2024. So based on my conversations with the Bureau and a bunch of everything, I was like, that doesn't sound right. They then went back and said, yes, that's wrong. We actually made a mistake. Our spreadsheet made a mistake. So I had said, based on feedback I got from the Finance Committee, we just need to know when is it due and how much, what's the total amount. So that's this letter that you've got in this packet that we will be working on. We've been making 50,000 a quarter payments. And if you look on this back page, this has an outstanding balance of $399,394. As I mentioned before, this did not record a payment that was done to catch up, so it's actually $349, and that's what we are obligated to get paid for by the end of this year.
So, and in our conversation, you mentioned that we were gonna be doing another quarterly payment of 50,000, leaving us a balance of basically 300,000, 299 and change.
Right.
So that's something that we'll need to discuss as a board, making arrangements for a loan, and the extended loan. And I know we've had a discussion, I don't know if you've had a chance to check with the U.S. Ag Department or not yet, whether we qualify for that 2% loan.
Right.
So one of the advantages of paying it now or getting it paid off this year, so when 2024 hits and we get our new allocations, we won't have to pay that CDP fee. So that was like $21 or $25 an acre foot, right?
No, we don't pay it. That's there, that stays.
No,
I think it
no.
That's a restoration fee, that will be there, but remember the middle of that chart that had TBDs on it? You're referring to the one at the bottom of the chart.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the ones that will get just eliminated. In other words, there no longer will be a TBD, there no longer will be, there'll be just zero.
Those were what, construction costs, maintenance or
Construction costs and
something
maintenance.
in there? Those we will be insulated from.
So again, they're leaving those in the chart because we haven't paid everything off. So in other words, if we don't pay it off, then they'll come back and say we're gonna be charged on that. Now, the other, first of all, this district's primary purpose to be in existence is that contract for 15,300 feet. This conversion to a prepaid contract is very, very valuable to the district. So we need to make sure that we can get this thing resolved. Now, the Bureau, in my meeting with them on April 4th, they did say they've got 200 of these contracts. Starting in 2024, they will start sort of the reconciliation and review process. So it's unlikely they would get to ours until after we have made our final payment, even if we lead our payments into 2024.
But we do want to pay it off in a timely fashion.
We do, and I think two things that I would just say as Director McVeigh said. Regardless of when we actually get this paid off, is it 12/31/2023 or 6/30/2024? We will actually have borrowed money to pay it off. We will have essentially borrowed money from our operating account. And so we do need to take some action by the board that identifies that you have borrowed against your current operating account to pay this off, and that $1.88 item in our bills, in our rates, needs to stay until that amount that borrowed from our operating has been paid off. The same as if we had borrowed $500,000, paid it off, and then taken 15 years, as described in the rates rationale, to pay it off at $1.88 per unit. I hope that makes sense to the board.
Yep.
It's something we still need to kind of process on how we do that. But I think without publicly acknowledging it, and without the board actually taking some action to acknowledge that, 10 years from now, somebody might say, well, why are we paying $1.88 still? It was paid off. Well, no, we have a schedule for that.
Correct.
So you have on your memo, provide direction to the GM. What direction are you looking for?
Nothing really. I think we've already really the direction you had given before by the board was, once you get this letter, have a finance committee meeting to talk about how to do that and bring that, their recommendations to you.
Okay.
So I think we already have that. I think more importantly, I just wanted the board and the community to see what we got.
Do you just need providing direction for you to look at securing a loan? Or you're already?
I think the best is that, but you can really just say, get a meeting with the finance committee, because what my suggestion is, the finance committee has the ability to say, okay, here's how we can pay it off, let's go get a loan, and then they would bring that back to your board
Okay.
to do that.
Right. One point I'd like to add to that, just for a very brief discussion, because we have a full agenda in front of us. Is it possible to take a look at what we're paying on the dump truck and what that interest rate is on that RCAC loan, and lump that in with a separate loan and maybe save the district some money? Something to possibly consider.
I think it's like 4%.
Yeah, and maybe it's not worth it. But
I
if it
don't know.
was in that 6 to 7 range, we could get something in the 2 to 2.5, it would be worth considering.
Right, and then, also, not only trying to get some information from USDA, but I've also reached out to, and now it's all of a sudden escaped my brain, but there was a Byron Bethany Water District created a JPA that has infrastructure lending capabilities at very low rates.
Good.
And it's administered primarily by that organization. So I'm trying to get some information for them for that same time. So hopefully we'll have 2 or 3 options to figure out what works best, what would be timely to some of the other things on that.
Sounds good.
All right, so we did 6B out of order, so we are on 6C.
Yep, thank you. And Madam Chair, real quick, I think we all are aware that we received an updated allocation from the Bureau that moved our preliminary allocation from 75% historic M&I, 35% irrigation, up to 100% M&I and 80% irrigation. So as I think Dennis identified, technically that we are still slightly constrained here. But a couple of things I would just mention in conversations with the Bureau. One, they confirm that the Bureau, when they go to 100% of M&I and over 75% of irrigation, they consider that an unconstrained year. So this year, our M&I usage will now be used as its 3-year rolling calculation for a future historical municipal M&I. So just for the board and the community, that means we want people to use as much M&I water as we possibly can this year, because one of the reasons why the Bureau's water shortage policy is so challenging is that it really documents what is a term in the water world and conservation world as water hardening. So some of you might remember those little clicky toys that my sons used to play with, where you spun the little thing that spun, but you couldn't spin it back the other way. So basically it's a ratchet down, you can't ratchet it back. So every year you come out of a drought, you've got people already trained to, not use a lot of water. So now, if we only use, let's say, 1,800 acre feet of M&I water this year, that'll be added to our 2018, 2019, and it'll be 2023 divided by 3. Currently, our historic M&I is 2265. That'd probably drop it. So in other words, if we don't use it any more than 2265 as our average, then we're gonna see in a future drought, maybe 2,100 historic M&I, and we get a 50% allocation of that. That makes it very challenging, right?
I thought at some point that it was supposed to be consecutive years, so that you couldn't do 2018, 2019, and 2023. I thought it had to be 3 years right in a row.
Full allocation years. though.
I believe it is that. I believe it is.
So it's not 3
it's
years in a row?
No, it's consecutive, unallocated, or unrestrained, not unallocated, unrestrained.
String years.
And so it doesn't have to be in a row.
Okay.
And, in my conversation
Yeah,
with the
that
Bureau,
would severely affect us. I think we're
Yeah.
that way.
so let me just mention, and the reason that is obviously you can't, I mean, you got 0 allocation years, you really, you get ratcheted down to 0 at some point. The other thing too, just, I know it's kind of ancillary to this item, but, I got confirmation from the Bureau that, any McConnell water will be M&I water. So if we use Bureau M&I water of 2,000 acre feet, and we use 500 acre feet of McConnell water, that means they will attribute that as a 2,500 acre foot.
Boosting, good.
So let me just add another thing. I got a call yesterday from the McConnell representative that said that they had 168 acre feet of water that they had not found a home for, and would we be willing to take it for free?
Yes,
Too bad.
for free, for free.
You bet.
Now, he
So
did
we're-
say that it's,
So we would get 600 and some odd acre
Right,
feet of
600.
water for the same price as 500.
correct. So what I told him, I said, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to make sure what I just said prior to that was true. So I called the Bureau again and said, okay, if we have 668 acre feet of McConnell water, would that then be added to any other M&I water that we get from you and be considered by your policy as 668 plus, let's say, 2,000? And they said yes.
Good.
So, no harm, no foul, we get free. He did say that he could have probably sold it for less than $250 somewhere else, but I think because we've patched up some of the relationship with them, you know, he recognized that we took a risk by buying the 500 and that we were probably regretting that. So effectively, that will, and I was gonna report this later, but that makes us about $187 an acre foot,
That's good.
if you look it out of that. So let's go back to this item, so in our drought policy, we have no real contingency for everything starts at 75% irrigation, 100% M&I. So when you get to 80% irrigation, I would ask the board to consider that means no drought. No, not even a need to be in the alert stage, which the board had done in the past when they were at 75 and 100. Back in 2016, the board did an alert stage before they did more. You see my calculation here, by the way, based on this current 100% M&I, 80% irrigation, the district now has available 10,428 acre feet total for irrigation. And of course, 2265 for M&I, so that means 12,693 acre feet of our 15,000. There are rumors that the Bureau will, on April 1st, just go to completely 100%. So another reason why I would say now's the time to declare the end of the drought. So that's a little bit of your background. Now, as you recall, the board approved, ordinance 2023-04, which removed all those restrictions and penalties and got us to a stage 2. This, ordinance will rescind that and removes all restrictions, in ending the water shortage. Also, at your March 15th meeting, because you were still able to have a drought rate, we did update the rate sheet that has domestic, agriculture, and our drought rate. So again, noticed in here, you are, the district, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say you, the district is no longer able, by its rates, to charge a drought rate when you're not in a drought. So there was no need to have a subsequent item to update our drought rate because we have the previous item in 2305 did that. So I just, so the community knows and the board remembers, that's in here. That's where you have your domestic rate at 72 cents and your ag irrigation rate at 71 cents. The other thing too, and again, maybe it should have been clearer, but looking back at the board's actions from 2016 and 2017 when they were coming out of that drought, just remind the board that the district didn't buy 500 acre feet of McConnell water. They committed to 900 acre feet of McConnell water, then had an unrestrained year. And in their ordinance to lift or rescind the drought, they had in there a directive to the general manager to attempt to recover costs through the sale of water to other agencies. Obviously, all that would have to come back as a separate item to the board, but this gives me a start now before coming back in May for that. And then lastly, I would just mention, we sent the ordinance to our attorney just to make sure everything was copacetic on it. And she unfortunately had a raft of illnesses, including her 80-year-old mother. So didn't get back to me with her clarifications and updates until we got to this sort of amended, and I gave both the board and the community a red line copy, and then obviously a clean copy. And it's not substantive, so in other words, we could have adopted the other ordinance. But there's a few things that we need to update. There's clearly a misspelled word in condition instead of condition. And then also just some other things that the chair had pointed out. But it's also just cleaner to say that we're rescinding ordinance 2304, removing all restrictions and declaring an end to the water shortage emergency condition than my previous one, which had, you know, the stage 2 drought planning and all the rest of that. And then she also clarified, and just so the board reminds, there's a whereas in here that the governor did rescind the March 28, 2022 requiring water agencies to be at stage 2. And also, I believe in the back, there's another one of these which has on it our little drought monitor page that shows that, you could say we're somewhat in that light yellow, but still we're on our way out of that too anyway. So.
This year.
With that,
Yes.
Any questions for?
No?
I do for clarification, if I can, please. Just for clarification for the board and the community, that means when we rescind appropriately so the drought rate, we cannot do a blended rate. So the McConnell water that costs us more, or the well water that costs us more, we cannot factor those into the rate, just what we get from the Bureau.
Well, there is no, well, let's clarify that. We were paying $100,000 towards the McConnell water, so it was only gonna cost us $50 an acre foot. So that's not blended. The well water, if I recall correctly, we only need a minimal amount just for maintenance, and so that's not gonna have to be.
Yeah, and that's something we discussed in the finance committee, but
Yeah.
not through the full board.
Yeah.
That's why I bring it up.
And so with that, our rates are gonna be 72 cents and 71 cents. And when are we approving that to be, to move down from the 87 cents?
As soon as you vote.
On this ordinance?
Yeah,
Yeah, just.
because,
Go down.
so what, the way it works is,
No, right now.
on March 15th, you approve, 2023-05 that has that rate sheet. It has your domestic ag and drought rate, which Director McVeigh correctly reminds us, it's a blended rate. So the whole idea of the drought rate was a blended rate to be able to collect the costs of water because of the drought. The minute you approve this, the drought rate goes away, and the, in effect, will be the ag and domestic rate.
Okay, and the normal water usage.
And that's why in my background, I have it in there, so you
Okay.
know.
Second question, we're saying that we executed a water use agreement for, the 500 acre feet. Do we need to clarify that and change it to the 600?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
I mean, we will amend it, it's gonna be just a little amendment that has the amount, but, this is, regardless of the amendment, this is what we're paying for.
right. Anyone else have any questions in regards to this ordinance? The public like to have a comment in regards to this ordinance at all?
Yeah, I would.
Sure.
Many winners, I'm getting there. So I'm gonna be paying 71 cents per 100 cubic feet. But, Scott's our mathologist, what would that be for, an acre foot of water? 43,000.
Approximately 320 off the top of my head. Sorry, I was a little high. 309,
309 per acre foot.
308.85, but 309.
What's that times 8?
Times 8, 2470.
Boy.
Okay, yeah, makes it difficult still.
I don't think I'm gonna be doing a lot of irrigating people. Last year, 2022, I paid $972.69 for 120 units.
Mhm.
And, that's almost $1,000. I'm gonna have 10 cattle to sell, or, afford 8 acre feet of water to keep my place green. It's gonna stay green for a while. It's been, I remember a year when it rained right up to till June, and we didn't irrigate until June. So that would be a break there, because I just have to irrigate June, July, August, September. But, it's still pretty expensive.
Will your pasture handle being irrigated this year?
Well, I'm getting a little bit better, type of grass than I thought I was gonna get. All my good pasture grass died out last year. And all this trash grass comes up and takes over, and crowds out the good grass. And it's hard to raise a 500-pound steer up to 1,000 pounds by December for butcher on pruning grass. And I just paid $120 last week for 5 bales of hay. Yeah, and it's crummy hay.
Sandy, see me later, I may have an opportunity for you to help you with that.
Okay.
Caitlin Patrick, I know we're not allowed to sell McConnell water because that's part of the contract situation, but the water you're getting from the Bureau, the Artois, was it Artois? And are they still an option that we could potentially sell the water to, so that we still use, and then with that question, does that count as using the water for future years? So if we sell it, does that still count as
That's a
used?
good question. The
Through
benefit
the
of
chair, if you'd like me to
Yes, I
try
would,
to
yeah.
answer that. So, the couple things. One, yes, but it would be under the irrigation usage.
No,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
just not M&I, just irrigation.
And it's
Okay.
No, well, it will be.
But let me just say, because we are so focused on the draconian drought measures that you have in the past zeroed out our ag allocation and given us a very small, if not zero, M&I, that's kind of what we focus on. But in the water shortage policy by the Bureau, they do have a rolling average and they do have a term called historic ag usage. And it's similarly calculated. So one of the reasons why I believe, regardless of this year and having McConnell water, any year that we get this kind of allocation, we should be looking, if we can, to transfer and use water elsewhere, because we want to get that average ag irrigation too. Because there is a time in which we could get a Bureau allocation in a drought that says you're going to get 50% M&I, historic M&I. We could get like a 50% historic ag. And if we're at 2,000 in ag, then we've got to be constrained as well.
So, Sandy, one thing I wanted to clarify for you is that based on the calculations from Bill on what the cost of the water is, just to get the water to everybody's door, it's 56 cents 100 cubic feet. And then on top of that, the water purchase. So that's why it's 71 and 72 cents. And that's why it's not the 37 and the 47. But that's one thing we're gonna look at, is actually go back through and look at all those line items and make sure all the expenses are correct. Of course, all the chemicals and that kind of stuff has gone up. So while we would appreciate to go back to 37, 47 or whatever it is, we don't think that's gonna be possible.
It was 17 cents for a long time.
Yes, it was.
Yep.
I paid 17.8 for years.
So, but it wasn't necessarily, some of the costs, when you go back and look at the numbers, the 17 cents was exactly what the Bureau was charging us for the water, but it wasn't taking into consideration the expenses of that water with everything else to go with it. So we were actually paying less probably than we should have been at the time, but we were, most of us paying double rates, the base rate. We were paying, domestic side, our M&I side and an ag side. So it kind of worked its way out, but yeah, I don't think we'll ever see that again.
Well, one thing we've been discussing in the finance committee was whether all those charges belong in the water rate or some of those should be moved to the base rate. So we'll be taking a look at that also.
Yeah, I would think the finance committee should be looking at that.
We are.
Any other questions from the floor? Community? All right, we'll bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure on this ordinance, 2023-06?
I move that we adopt ordinance 2023-06.
As amended?
As amended, yes.
I second it.
Have a motion by Director McVeigh to approve ordinance 2023-06 as amended, and a second by Director Pam. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion carried. Okay, 6D.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. For those that were at the Finance Committee, the first part of this is a little bit of a reminder. But for the full board, one of the things that the district started using QuickBooks on July 1 of 2022, did not have a bookkeeper until the end of November of 2022, but had a contract with someone to come in and basically do payables. They did payables and they didn't really set up the chart of accounts until we got a bookkeeper in. And so we've been working on getting the chart of accounts to be as close to some of our budgetary items and issues, as well as close to what our actual expenses are. And the last thing I would mention on that is we're also trying to get them, I've used this term before, but as detailed as possible, as granular as possible. In other words, it's one thing to have in your budget utilities for the wells, but we actually have 3 PG&E agreements with that, and so we have actually accounts, so we can track all of those expenses on those. Same thing for, it's one thing to have vehicle expenses for treatment or distribution, but we actually have every single one of the vehicles on there as an expense. So those are things that we're definitely getting a lot better at. So last meeting, we had July 1 through December 31 with our budget to actuals, and there's still some issues with some of where the locations of the chart of accounts and some of the different allocations, but I think it was, we refined it and now have it for, I like to say, your Q3 budget to actuals review. And then based on that, I'm also making a recommendation that we modify the adopted 2022-2023 budget. So first, as it relates to this document, and I'm totally open to any questions or comments or input that you may have, but I just want to go through some of those items there. You'll see that before we get to sort of my recommendation on the budget change amendments. So you'll see at the top line revenue, there's the base rates we've received over $1 million in base rates. Our budget for 3 quarters of the year would be 1.16. So we're under budget on that. Under water sales, we also have some revenue, but one of the things the budget didn't identify any ag water sales, but when we reconcile the counts, there's many counts that are paying that have either a combined ag code or a strictly ag code. So even though we have no ag water from the Bureau, there is water that's being sold through ag accounts. So that's what that revenue identifies. But that's significantly down on that. And so that is going to trigger one of my comments for the budget amendment. So just doing a quick little calculation on the 1,009,000, we're averaging about 113,000 a month. That should be almost 150,000 if you looked at the old budget. But two couple things. One, that means we're averaging about 2,000 accounts out of 2,360 bills that we send out actually paying. So we'll have some discussion about that later, but that's why we need to change it. The other thing I've discovered is that in the rate making documents from 2021 and in all of the other documents, there's a constant reference to this 2,710 accounts, 2710. So the board, with all good intention, took 2710 times 5605 base rate times 12, and then multiply that by 85% to come up with a budgeted revenue number, and that's later in the packet. It all makes sense. But actually, we have 2,577 accounts that are at the full base rate of 5605.
2,500 what?
77. And that fluctuates. There are people that shut off and then a renter comes in, or they sell a house and those kind of, so that goes up and down. But as of last Wednesday, that's the number. There's 122 1081 accounts. So many people refer to 1081. Remember, that's your base charges for, as I call them, designated revenue. So those are go into your backwash pond, your wind ag costs, your dollar state fund things. So those all add up to $10.81. And then there's 11 accounts that, for for some reason, our district refers to them as dummy accounts. But they are transitory accounts in general. One of the accounts is this building. In other words, we track water usage here, but we don't charge ourselves for the water usage at this location. Many of the accounts, dummy accounts, are used for when a construction company comes in. We just had one come in that says, I need 6 weeks of water from one of your fire hydrants so I can have construction water. So we put a temporary meter out there and we set them up in one of these accounts to charge them for that water usage. On the water sales side, drastically underestimated the quantity of water that's going to be sold in this fiscal year. You might recall on the old budget, and it's kind of attached there, but at $1.04, if you run the numbers of this 85% of 1,124,000, that means that there was a projection of almost 3,000 acre feet of water being sold in the district during this last fiscal year. Well, I mean, we had zero allocation for most of this year, and it looks like we're going to sell probably around 1,700 acre feet, plus or minus, based on 3/4. So that was a drastic overestimation of our revenue in those two locations. So I think one of the beauties, and like Director Fuss said, one of the great things about QuickBooks is we're gonna be more on this, right? In other words, we can do a quarterly, next fiscal year, a quarterly thing. We're gonna really know a lot better how we're tracking instead of waiting until 3/4 into the fiscal year like we are this time. But those are just things you find when you run a report that's actually got some information on it. Now, some of this revenue is still not quite reconciled. We've got some revenue that's sitting in one of our accounts that is from some credit card stuff that hasn't been fully reconciled, but this is pretty close. I will just mention that you see down lower that we trigger our revenue from our taxes and general property. You also will see that we're significantly under expenses currently on the treatment plant, but you just saw a pretty significant bill that came in on your activity. That's not going to show up until the April, but so that'll get us closer to their budget, but they're still going to be under budget for expenses. The distribution, repairs, and maintenance on page 2, you can see that we're significantly still over that. Some of that is some expenses that haven't been correctly allocated. For example, when we make a repair and we use a bunch of 16-inch pipe, let's say, we use the pipe that we got sitting out here, we go and purchase pipe to replace it, that is showing up currently in repairs and maintenance. That actually is inventory, so it needs to be identified elsewhere, but it's still going to be over what our budget is. That's why I'm going to recommend that we up that budget somewhat. One of the things that the good news is we haven't had to use our wells for very much, and the district prudently thought that in a drought, if we continue to be in zero allocation, we were going to have to use the wells a lot more, so they budgeted $675,000 worth of costs in the utilities. I think we can remove $500,000 of that, so that balances out, by the way, our revenue projection not being as high. So good news, we're still running in black. There's a mention down at the bottom. We break out above page 3, the State Water Resources Control Board water fee. That's the drinking water fee. That is a per connection fee. The State Water Resources Control Board, California Department of Tax and Finance Administration water rights fee. So in the past, the State Water Board would send that fee charge to us. I think what happened is so many of the Central Valley project districts grumbled, complained, sometimes withheld their payment, or sent a letter of protest when they paid it, that they passed this on to the more threatening Tax and Finance Administration to send their bill. So that one is actually gonna be, I think, yeah, it's about 20,000 on that one. On page 4, in the middle, there's a chargebacks and account refunds. You might recall we had a connection fee refund request that the board approved. So most of that 18,000 is out of that, and that triggers an option for the district to do a better job tracking and accounting for those in the future. It appears that when somebody paid their capacity fee, it just went into the general checking, and there was no account set up, there was nothing really set up, and it was just paperwork, so that'll definitely be improved. At the bottom of page 4, there's a line 6,000, which is our payroll expenses and salary and wages. We're still working on making that more refined and granulated. Eventually, what you'll see there is payroll expenses, and then under it, you'll have treatment, distribution, customer accounts, and administration. Your previous budgeting included those salary costs within their different divisions. We're not sure we're able to quite do it that way on in QuickBooks, but regardless, even if it's all in one location, which I think it's not a bad thing to have all your employee costs in one location, that would be helpful. That way too, we can actually have some of our employee benefits and retiree benefits all on the same page, so it's easier to calculate their impact. There's still, I actually had a talk with our consultant bookkeeper today, asking some different questions and asking for their help on this 37,000 suspense account.
Yeah.
I think, as I referred to you before, the best that we could find is that even though the district committed to being on QuickBooks July 1 of 2022, there appears to have been $37,000 worth of bills paid out under the old system in July. And so since they didn't know at the time where to attribute them in this chart, they just stuck them in this suspense thing, which, as your manager, is very irritating. I'm irritated. That's all right, we solve a problem and then we move on to the next problem to solve. So that's your budget to actions. Any questions or comments about that before we go to the budget amendment?
I have a few.
Yes.
I have a couple.
Some of these we discussed already in the finance committee meeting, but I wanted to bring up one I don't believe we did. Page 2, distribution. We have Cloverdale, Click Creek, Booster AT&T, utilities, safety equipment, things that I don't think were put into the budget. I think I'd like to see those move over and actually have a budget line for those items.
Which ones are, is you talking about distribution?
Under distribution,
Utilities?
Cloverdale Road, PG&E,
Yeah.
and when Bill and I worked on this current budget we're under, some of these items I don't believe got included into
Included
it.
in them, okay.
And I just want to make sure that we do a little better job. Also, where are we?
Well, real quick, for just the board's purposes, even though it's gonna be amended, if you look at the old budget, under transmission and distribution, we just missed having a utility
Yeah.
there, and we will definitely fix that.
Yeah.
Good point.
Page 3, bottom, regulatory fees, the water fee, the 17,000 based on the number of meters. Is that possibly, have we told the state that we have 2,710 and we really only have 2,500, say 80? And so are we overpaying? And then the next question is, if it's per meter, how many customers have one meter but multiple units and are paying double base rates, triple base rates, and can that then reduce that fee even more, saving the district $1,000, $1,500, maybe more a year?
So, excellent point, to Director McVeigh, so I appreciate you bringing this up in the public session. That'll be something we will be following up with our infamous drinking water folks. In other words, they sent us a bill in December, I think it was, based on whatever the district had given to them in the past. And so I have to find out. There's actually three things on that. One, is it connections? Is it meters?
Yeah,
Is it accounts? I don't know. We need to find out, right?
Correct.
Because there's a difference.
because we still have that 122 that are paying only the set fees for
And you would
backlog.
argue those are connections,
Yeah, you can.
but they're not necessarily current active accounts. So,
Exactly,
in other words, they're not getting any water.
right.
So, so I don't know for sure. I suspect they have in their record book the 2710, because that's what we had in our rate making thing. So
So
I
we
just
may
need to
go
find
down
out,
from-
and, you know, so, very excellent point, and hopefully we can.
I'd like to, and maybe not necessarily now since we're going through those, but I have a real concern with collecting only 85%.
Yeah.
And I did some calculations and it's really closer to 80% that we're collecting.
Right.
And I really have concerns about missing out on that 20% and burdening the rest of the community.
Right.
So at some point, and it doesn't have to be right now, I'm gonna discuss that as a board, maybe give our general manager some direction.
Madam Chair, just, if you don't mind, excellent point. At the end of my memo, under revenue and billing, I have just some comments about that. So I'm gonna suggest that let's look at our budget to actuals, let's amend the budget, and on that one, let's have that conversation and.
Sounds fine.
And that was one of my questions was that you had that on there, and that, you know, I would like to have, the thought process of going back to having the letters that we send out when a customer was past due. So I don't know of the, in the minutes from whenever they stopped it, they said it was about $3,000 a year. But I wanna know what the current costs might be with staff having to send out these, you know, late payment letters, and see, because yeah, if we're only at 80%, you know, we've got to come up with some other options, because you're talking $200,000.
Yeah.
It's currently running about 26,800 a month, and multiply that out by 12.
Well, I just looked at what he had on the late
I know.
payment, on the late payments. The other thing that I wanted to point out that, Melissa pointed out at the finance meeting, if anybody looks at the profit and loss on these budget versus actual, and just for one example, the state loan, repayment charge, you've got a lot of things that have cents on them, and we charge only $1 on the state, loan. And it's like, how can you have cents when it's only $1? Well, the problem is that the old fry system is if you had a customer that didn't pay their full amount and went on a payment plan, the fry system would allocate a certain amount to this and a certain amount to that and a certain amount to this, so that every time it fluctuates, and that's why you've got the cents on some of these.
Yes,
Thanks.
and so I was in my notes to mention that again. So this was something we talked about and reported to the finance committee. And it's also part of the conversation about the whole customer accounts and all the rest of that stuff. So, you know, the district has pursued delinquent accounts. In many cases has sent up some people to be on payment plans. As a matter of fact, we had somebody come in today that was making payment on a payment plan or set themselves up on our old computer system does it, and I've never seen it until now, but usually you have a priority. In other words, if somebody's gonna come in and say they have a $1,200 bill and they come in and they're gonna pay $200 a month on a payment plan on this thing, what the system now does, it divides up all that. Let's say there's 8 things that are on your bill that you charge for: usage, base rate, WINAC, blah, 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 blah. It just divides by 8, divides 200 by 8, and attributes money to that. So that's why you're getting pennies attributed to something that charged you $1, okay? Most systems work best if you have a priority system. Now, first priority, oldest gets paid off first. In other words, all it's doing now is it's taking the total amount. So technically, they've still got 6, 8-month-old bills that are not getting caught up. Oldest first, and then you start with your 1081, gets paid, so the dollar gets attributed fully to a dollar. Then you go to your base rate, then you go to your usage rate, and then any other charge. That way those things do. But I appreciate the chair bringing that up because that is an issue that we need to talk about as it relates to customer accounts and management. Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on the budget versus actual?
Anyone else with questions? Okay.
So if you don't mind, Madam Chair, I'll just go right into the recommended budget amendment. So what I did is I attached you basically a instead of making the budget amendment look like our profit and loss, which I think would be confusing, I thought, well, let's make it look like your old one, just so you're familiar with it and kind of know what we're doing with it. First, I am remorseful to say that when you look at the adopted budget column, so that is the adopted budget that was done before, and like I said, a lot of good work was done on that. But if you go all the way to the last page, there was not a net number on the old one. And though it appeared to have been a balanced budget then, there was something missed in the Excel spreadsheet, and it was not. It was actually approved at a negative $30,000. Okay? So again, on the right-hand column, that's why you'll see I actually did have a little net. But that's just kind of a fact check thing that we do for our spreadsheet. So first of all, as I mentioned already, I believe we need to reduce the budgeted revenue based on the 2,577 accounts. Oh, there it is. It's actually written in there. 2,577 accounts, full base rate, the 122 accounts, and the 1081 accounts, and the 11 that aren't used, so that we would reduce that to 1,475,000. On the water sales side, as mentioned before, the previous projection was to sell almost 2,900 acre feet. We're not going to sell that much, so we're going to reduce the sales and also put in the 100,000 for the ag sales that it's kind of tracking at, because previously we had 0 in there. On our expenses, I'm recommending we bump our WINAC payment budget. For some reason it was at the 200 and
25, what's it?
yeah, and so I think just getting it to the number that we're actually going to pay in this fiscal year would be beneficial of 250,000. The other thing too is we need to increase our water purchase budget. Previously it only had in it payments for McConnell water, which made sense because there was no way to know that we were now going to have Bureau water for the last 3 or 4 months of this fiscal year. So adding in, I just did some calculations on what that should be. So we upped that. So a total cost, source of supply, increasing our cost of $84,942. In transmission and distribution, that O&M cost is running higher, so my suggestion is we increase that line item by $35,000. In administration in general, the general manager wage was conjectured at $120,000. Made sense, but really for 8 months of the contract agreement amount, it comes in significantly less than that. And so reducing that by $15,000 and moving it to places where we need it, which is in some professional services and actuarial to deal with OPEB and HR services. Our office supplies are already running a little higher, and legal because that's running a little bit higher. But I do need to note for you, in the 23-24 budget, the full GM wage line will be the $140,000 because that's what our agreement is. Retiree medical, again, the previous budget did the best they could to figure this out. I've actually looked at the actual costs of retiree medical for our retirees from July 1 through March, and then it's not going to change between now and the end of this year. One of the retirees actually went to the Medicare, so it dropped that one significantly. So we actually can reduce that amount to 110,000. And the big reduction in expenses is the well field and booster station of 500,000. The water rights fee, I believe we should at least identify that separate line item for the drinking water fee of 18,000. So in the end, the bottom line here, as mentioned before, we reduce our total funds available by 348,000, and we reduce our expenditures by 387,000. We obviously move them around a little bit, and you can see we get a net position of, having projected currently of having $8,000 more, which I think we should feel better about adopting a budget amendment that has a positive bottom line versus a negative one. So that's my recitation. I hope it was clear in the background. I tried the best I could to describe it as best I could.
Any comments from the board?
I would ask that you also ask the public and then take a vote on it.
Any questions from the public?
I'll make a comment, that was a very thorough explanation of our budget. I don't believe I've ever heard one quite that thorough at any of the board meetings. Good job.
Thank you, Sandy. Anyone else? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board.
I want to thank the Finance Committee and the General Manager for all the work done on this, because as everybody knows, it was messed up and needed to be fixed.
And
And it's
Melissa,
getting fixed.
and Melissa.
Yeah. Staff.
Yeah.
It is a lot clearer. It's not perfect, but
We're getting there.
it's a big step from where we were.
So one of the questions I had though is that we've got nothing that we're putting nothing in reserves though, right?
Right.
Paying a win act off.
None of that 4.1.
Yeah.
And we're overpaying and pulling out of operational expenses on that WIN Act. But we're under collecting by, like you said, 200,000 or more,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, I think, actually, it's a really good reminder. I think I would describe this budget amendment as really more of an accuracy amendment
Yes.
than anything else, because this, normally what I would argue is we would be doing this in January based on 6 months. And I think as we go forward, and these kind of reports being much more accurate, we're gonna be able to be more nimble to make these kind of adjustments instead of 3/4 of the way through the year. You may notice that there is nothing budgeted in the adopted budget to be put into reserves either. And so that is clearly something we need to fix. In other words, this net position should be a reserve put.
Correct.
And that is what you do when you do future amendments, is you're putting and pulling from reserves to balance your budget at the time.
Mhm.
So it's a good point.
And that's why we need to build the reserves.
And I would just say, the other thing is, we could probably do 8 or 9 more line items of amendments, but I think just hitting the significant ones here is good.
I mean, and the point is, and like, Director Scott had said, is that, 250,000 that were paid to the WIN Act is actually coming out right out of our budget. So when you look at, we're only making $8,000, it's not quite accurate, so.
No,
But we have to understand too, is we're only collecting just over 60,000 at 100% collection
Right,
on the WIN Act. So we're actually collecting about 52,000.
yeah, so we're not even getting that.
So
And
we're
to your point, that's why I brought up under the old business item on the WIN Act, when we go and have this conversation with the finance committee that you've assigned it to, is that part of whatever we decide on with the WIN Act is it needs to be an acknowledgement by the board in public of that we've been borrowing against our operating costs to pay off the WIN Act, and that borrowing needs to move forward to getting paid back by the WIN Act. And that's gonna take 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And you know,
But
I'll
we-
remember because I'll probably be here in 10 years, but I may not be here in 15 years, and we don't need future boards to say, oh, what's going on here, why is that? We need it on the record.
The transparency aspect.
Transparent.
But this is what we've been asking for, because we didn't know how bad we were. And now we know.
Now we know.
Yep.
And we're moving forward, and we take it a step at a time.
I have a question. Were we successful at all with that lawsuit that we joined with some other water districts against the WIN
It's ongoing.
Yeah, I still believe it's ongoing.
Act? I know we have an investment in legal fees and stuff.
Yep.
So,
Small
We still-
percentage.
Maybe that's a good thing for a future board meeting, to find out exactly where we stand with that lawsuit.
It's a very good point, Director Fuss. Sandy, it's still pending.
it sure has
it's-
drug out.
It is drug out.
For years.
Now, I just can't resist, and I know we got a long meeting, shouldn't get into this, but we should bring this back for another item to have this conversation, get an update on what's really happening with that. But that water rights fee thing that I just mentioned to you before, just recall, the state said, you have to pay us a water right. We said, no, this is a bureau contract right.
Yes.
And eventually it went all the way to the California Supreme Court. The California Supreme Court basically said, no, the raindrops fell in California, it's our water, we're gonna charge you a water right. I'm being a little, facetious there, but that's basically what they did. That took 18 years.
Okay.
All right, so we do have to have an action on this budget adjustment.
I move that we adopt the adjustments to the budget to bring it more in line with actuals.
I'll second that.
A motion from Director McVeigh to accept the budget amendment or adjustment for the 9 months, and I have a second by Director Fuss. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Motion carried.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. So under the last section of my it turned out to be a pretty long memo. So revenue and billing accounts. So as Director McVeigh mentioned, we have multiple issues. One being that we need to be more clear and transparent to both the community and the board and the finance committee in our future budgeting on how many base rates we actually have, right? So that'll be something we'll take forward. But based on quick calculations, I even have it in my memo, there's about 80% of our customers are paying monthly, kind of give or take. Now, we still need to do more forensics on exactly if that's true or not. But I will just maybe mention, I asked Kayla to actually look it up. And in February, it looks like we received payments from about 1,850 accounts. And remember, we send out about 2,400 bills. That includes the bills that have multiple base rate charges on them. So it's not like we send a bill to the same address that has 4 meters, right? So that's the way that works. So, but if you actually look at our operations report and you look at the total number of accounts that are delinquent, and you subtract that number from 2710, that's 1857. So again, pretty close to what we're actually getting paid. So, a couple of things. We need to track this better. We need probably an updated software system to do a better job on this thing. A couple of reasons to get rid of the 1997 and add it on to Fry software is it gives you a chance to forensically go through all your accounts and clean them up. The other thing is, our current system does not have as robust of an ability to find out, like, who's late. We have, on our rate sheet that we hand people, it says that if you're 21 days late, you get a 1.5%, late fee charge. Allegedly, it shows up on our bills, but it doesn't even get applied to our folks.
Yeah.
Right now. I was talking to the Centerville general manager because we're kind of interested in their software. They use CUSI. He says on the 21st day, they press a button and they print out all of the accounts that are not paid yet. So say it's 120 accounts, they go through them, they say, oh yeah, those 20, we know they're on payment plans and blah, 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 blah. These here or that. Hey, these people pay normally. We either give them a call, shoot them an email if we have an email. If they get no response, they push another button, and any accounts that haven't paid by the 22nd day get a 10% charge in Centerville. Now, they can afford it, but that's kind of the way they do it, it's quick. We don't have that ability to do that. Now, I've seen in other places where if you send out a bill and the account is over 21 days late, you stuff it in a different colored envelope, or you do it at 60 days, whatever the policies are. The other thing is we need to follow up on putting liens on properties that are delinquent accounts that are over a certain amount. Now, if a delinquent account owes you $200, not worth the time and effort to put a lien on it. But we have accounts that owe us over $1,000. My number that I like is $1,000 or $1,200. You owe more than that, we send you notices, blah, 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 and we get a lien on your property. And then the other thing too is, currently, under our MOU and everything else, our account clerk is a part-time position. So 32 hours a week. And we have Shannon Perry, our new account clerk, after Karen is doing great. But, I think, and I need to run the numbers, I don't know this for sure, but if we make them a full-time person, and one of their tasks is calling our delinquents, doing all this other stuff, that the revenue brought in, because we don't currently have the capacity to do that, will pay for the increased cost of having somebody work an extra day. We also can use, as we have in the past, some volunteers to do some of these calls and follow-ups. But, Sally did an amazing job with what she did to do it, especially when you consider what she had from Fry's to do that. So, in other words, Emily and I talked about it a little bit. It's like, I'd love to get a volunteer to help our staff to do some of the follow-up, but I don't really have any good information to actually give them to make calls and do all those other kind of things.
How expensive would the new program be, and what are our obligations to Fry, if any?
We have an annual licensing fee to Fry's, and we do also for any other future system. Just real quick for you and the community, Fry's software, we pay a annual, I think it's in here, the budget, somewhere around $9,000 or $10,000 a year for what they call Cubic, which is the customer user blah 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 database information. We also paid them a licensing fee for CHIPS, which was their payroll system, and we used to pay them a licensing fee for Bucks, which was their wonderful accounting system. And so Fry's is super irritated with us because we are no longer, we're not using those anymore, so I don't know. But they want to keep us as a customer, obviously. So they're around 9. I think any of the other systems that we've asked for information from, some of them have a $10,000 a year fee. Some of them have, we charge you X amount, $2 or $3 per account that you have. So, you can kind of calculate that.
Centerville's though, what is theirs?
What's that?
Do you know the cost for Centerville?
CUSI. So one reason why I'm kind of interested in that, and obviously Centerville is fairly happy with it, but Rio Alto, which is one of our other districts, actually Tehama County, just on the north end there near us, they also just went to CUSI. I think they're around 10 or 12,000 a year. I'm not really positive for sure. So they're in the ballpark. Our licensing costs have been budgeted around 15 to 16,000 because we were paying for cubic bucks and chips.
Right.
So will we get rid of Fry completely and go to CUSI?
Potentially.
That would be one option. There's one called Amsden, that's another one that we're gonna look at. And I'm gonna have staff kind of look at some demos and just sort of give some thoughts about those ones. There's one that I don't know if we've got a full proposal for, but they actually have something in their package that you can push a button for, and it'll kick out the ones that are supposed to be a lien put on, and you can go do that.
Oh.
So, you know, one of the other items that relates to that is, you know, one of the beauties of conversions, we obviously need to save our historical data. We need to be able to, you know, do what we currently do, which have base rates and usage rates and ag and irrigation and drought, you know, rates, depending on when we have those, and obviously our other items. But what you can convert. One of the things Kate found is that, you know, we have some accounts that sometimes show up as delinquent. Then when you go look at them, they're not delinquent. And then sometimes they don't show up at all, and you look at them and they are delinquent. We've got, I don't know, I saw one account that actually has a billing code for sewer.
So
Didn't know we did that, but we don't.
a question for you on that, if I can, please. Whatever software we choose to go with, can we integrate the data from Fry, cubics, bucks, whatever, into the new software without having to manually input everything? We've got deposits, people who've lived out here a long time, we paid a deposit. You know, mine's very small because I've been here 20+ years, but that has to translate over into the new software.
Correct. That's any software that we would ask for a bid to do is, we know there will be a conversion cost and a preservation of data cost.
Okay. So would there be an upfront fee? Would we, if we decided to switch to something else, and I'm all in favor of that, by the way, are we starting our subscription from day one, or are there not just the conversion fees, but the install and whatnot upfront?
Yeah, most of them have something related to sort of an install fee, and that usually includes the install, conversion, and training.
Right.
And that's the other thing too that we're really lacking with Fry software. There's really very little training. Just one other irritant is that, you know, just it's the interaction with the bank, you know, the online. I don't know how many of you go online and pay your bill online, the portal that they have. I mean, it's an add-on, and so when you get to a conversion to a software that's got it built in, it's in better shape, it works better, it's more smoother. Again, back to Centerville, if you pay with your Visa card, just like us, it gets a 3% charge. But the way it does it is the customer gets paid, let's say it's a $100 bill, the customer gets charged $103. $100 gets automatically attributed to the account, and $3 goes to the bank. Currently, our crazy system is, we charge the customer $103, we collect from the customer $103, we then go to the system and type in that the $100 got attributed to their account. Then when it gets all reconciled, that $3 difference, the bank then takes it out of our account.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to do all the accounting.
Yeah.
A lot of staff time.
That's crazy.
So another reason, and that's another reason that wrapped into this, we need to put out an RFP or something to get some proposals for a new bank.
So if I can address the chair, can we, as a board, give our general manager direction to look into and present to the board, possibly at the May meeting, some options for us to discuss and potentially select?
For what? A new bank?
No,
Or-
software.
Oh, software.
Software.
Oh, yeah,
That's
we
what
can
we're
direct him
talking
to investigate, yeah,
Sure.
you bet. He has been.
Gonna do it
he has
anyway.
I know.
I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah,
That's a good thing.
I'd like a time frame to move forward.
Well, maybe a report at the May meeting as to where things are.
Yeah.
Yes, and if you don't mind, also directing me to come back at the May meeting for other things, ways to deal with this accounts
Yes.
issues
Yeah.
as well. I'll be reporting to the finance committee as well, but I think we're tracking with it. This was really an opportunity to let the community know and let the board know that this is a real issue and that we need to work on it and deal with it.
Okay, any other thoughts? I think I already asked the community, so we're good there. So we're gonna go on to the boil water advisory,
Thank you.
that we had in March.
Madam Chair, there's kind of a long recitation here, but in conversations with the chair, I thought it would be good to have for a discussion item, the boil water advisory from March 10 to 21, and just some different things. You can see kind of what happened, right? I mean, 9 inches or whatever it is of snow in a day in which the power goes off and comes back on, blows out one of our motors, we get raw water in the system, we pump that raw water out of the system, but the state basically wants to, put the boil water. It takes, because nobody's using any water while it's raining and snowing, it doesn't get through our system, it takes forever to get, it takes 8-9 days to get through the system. It took 3 days to even get to our system. But the main thing that I feel, we did have a staff meeting after I call it the post-event staff meeting, because I think there were some real deficiencies in our communication, the clarity of our message, and timeliness of it. And it always happens when there's a disaster or something that, we wish we'd have done something better. So that's really, any input that the board has on this is great. One of the things that was clear is better coordination with the state officials on the boil water advisory. For example, they dithered almost all that Friday and didn't actually send it out till late, 4 o'clock that afternoon. I mean, if they had decided, and I told this to Katie about this, Huntington, if you knew at 10 o'clock you were gonna do it, then let's get out at noon so we got staff. The other thing is, it's buried in there, but it says it's precautionary. It says that it's gonna take days, that none of this water has reached your system yet. But obviously, one of the things that people were concerned about, we're getting called on Monday, oh my God, I'm drinking bad water because I hadn't heard about it. Well, no, the water hasn't even got here yet. The boil water advisory started on Friday. So more clarity, where and which districts impact. One of the reasons why I met with Centerville is, I saw their press release. Their press release was clear, it was them. But, the media are saying, oh, boil water's lifted. No, it's lifted for Centerville, not for us. We still haven't had it, but I have talked to the state, but I'd like to talk to them again, do it closely. But a couple ideas, a couple things we found out. We sent out alerts through the alert system that's on our website. Well, that's if you voluntarily signed up for an alert.
Right.
So we were getting people saying, I didn't get an alert. Great, what's your cell phone number? And we were pulling them up on their account and putting their cell phone number in their account. And whoops, no, it needed to go into the alert system. So you saw that in our newsletter. I even created a QR code to get people to go to that thing, hopefully. We have talked to Shasta OES about a reverse 911 option. They are a little concerned that they can't get it focused enough just within Clear Creek. They're worried that if they put it out on their Twitter or send it out, it's like somebody in Bella Vista is gonna get an alert and they're gonna be like, what? Am I boil water? No. So we're still gonna look at that, but we're not sure that. The other thing that we really didn't do a good job on, and Bill felt bad about this and apologized to the staff, is getting a better message to our staff, so that our staff knew what to tell people when they called in. And it took us a few days to kind of get everybody with the right message to people, as well as to our answering service. One of the ideas our staff had, was a great idea, I think, is getting one of those portable light up message boards. You know, the traffic ones there, and just getting, you know, well, they have to cover a couple of intersections here and get most everybody coming and going. Just, you know, boil water advisory, look at our website. And then that might be another one. I kind of like the idea of even putting together a postcard, because we could have mailed a postcard on to everybody on, dropped it in the mail on Friday. Again, that's why we're irritated at the state waiting until 4:30. Just a quick little postcard, we would have gotten in everybody's hands by the time the water had even gotten close. Or maybe find an independent phone text service that would take all the numbers from the district system. In the past, this appears to have been a fairly expensive thing that the district was unwilling to do. But I have talked to Centerville. They actually have a system in which they put money on deposit. They type in a message and some AI voice, you know, reads it, either the Google girl or Google guy, depending on who your preference is, and it gets, a phone call goes out to everybody that has a phone number in your system. Kayla and I have actually been looking at that we should have that. Because one of the nice things about it is you can dump all the phone numbers out of even our crappy fry system. You can dump everything out of there, an Excel spreadsheet, upload it to this system, and everybody would get a phone call. So your home phone, if you have one, your cell phone, or whatever number you have with us, it would be a call. So those are some things. Other ideas, I will say, one of the great things about having a board meeting on the 15th of March in the midst of our boil water was, you know, we had some concerned citizens come and say, you know, I haven't heard anything since the boil water. I thought, geez, you're right, it's a really good point. We should be sending something out every couple of days, just reminding people, we haven't forgotten you. So we felt bad about that. We only got one extra alert out. We sent out something again on that Friday, a couple of days after that meeting. But, I mean, that was a really good point that we need to have in our plan. And again, you know, those are things, the district doesn't have an emergency response plan, you know.
Another suggestion is the reader board at the school. We use that for Firewise all the time, and we're pretty successful, and doesn't cost us anything.
Awesome.
When it's working. Sometimes it doesn't work.
There's also a message board at the community center too, I'm sure they'd like you to put something.
That's harder to put up.
Harry's not real enthused about it anymore. It takes him over an hour to do that.
Okay.
The electronic sign is great, I like that idea. I think cost, because if we don't own one, renting it and stuff like that. I don't know if it's possible, but why not one of those like flagger signs, you know, it's just the tripod leg, they throw it down on the ground, and just having, you know, maybe 10 of those, and just throwing them at, like, you know, so, like you said, the main locations, and just saying boil water notice in effect, and then, you know, once the boil water's done, you just pull those flags out, you know, and bring them back to home base. Because I mean, if the guys are out driving around anyways.
Yeah.
How about from the board, any?
I got a couple of one suggestion. We have an alert system. The problem is that we don't have enough people signed up for the alert system. We need to try to get more people signed up for the alert system so that they will get the alert.
Well, I
You're not
think,
gonna get everybody, I know that, but the more we get, the better off we are.
Yeah, he may just have to continue to put it on the newsletter.
Well, here's what I suggest here, take a look at this. Nice pink paper, stick it in the bill, and just say here that we had the boil water alert, that we're sorry for that. We're trying to get better communication with the customers. Here's one way we can do it. We can sign up for the alert system, and here's how to do it.
Another aspect of that, when you download phone numbers, a lot of phone numbers are not accurate. You know, people have gone from a landline to TDS or something,
Yeah.
and are now cell phones only. So
Really good.
it might include, you know, the chance to update their phone number.
Might hand them
with the
out,
district.
give you some people out there.
Yeah.
I'll take one of them.
Yeah.
But, the idea would be to just improve the alert system. I mean, it works. I get the alert.
I do too.
Yeah, and it works fine.
I get it by
But it
email.
also
You know,
goes
so
to
if we can
email.
get more people,
You can choose
the
to have
alert,
it
we're
go
not gonna
in.
get everybody, it's obvious.
Yeah.
But the more people we can get, the more way we can get them to do that. And this is an easy way to do it. We already send out a bill every month.
Yeah.
And, just to, you know, I put it on pink paper, because you look at it on pink paper, and go, oh, hey, pink paper, I gotta read that. Or you could put important up there or something, you know? And you'll get more people that would sign up for the alert.
Well, I think they had over 50 people call at least.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah.
And hopefully they signed up for the alert.
Yeah.
But you could send this out every month. You could send it out and keep working at it. Try to get people to sign up for the alert, because the alert works, guarantee you. Now, it doesn't say, I'm not saying we shouldn't do other things as well, you know, but we got the alert system, it works. Try to get people to sign up for it.
One of the things that I found unacceptable was over a week being on a boil alert. That's just unacceptable. I don't know how the state could even, how do we alleviate that aspect of being so long? Because some of the comments on Facebook was, well, you should be paying for our water then if I have to go buy water. But I can see 2 or 3 days, but we were at what, a week and 3 days or something like that?
Took that long for it to get through the system.
Sure, but there's got to be something else that could have been done with that aspect. That just seems too long. I don't understand. That's the part I don't understand.
Well, you're discussing that with the state, and that's a good point, you know, the state, I know the state is a state, and sometimes it's like looking at a log and trying to make headway, trying to make a connection with the log, but try anyway, you know, or see if there's some way that, even the state could play a part in this. They need to, they're the ones that set it up.
So we had really very little water that was actually contaminated, right?
Right.
Or raw water.
Yeah, there was very little, and I think, you know, from the perspective of our chief treatment plant operator and the one most knowledgeable in the district on water quality, it also was heavily chlorinated.
Yes.
So one of the ways that, you know, you do, so before I jump into that part of it, totally agree, we will definitely, this is one of our big issues with the state, is that it does not help either them or us to spend multiple days talking about what the criteria and protocols will be for lifting the boil water. In other words, we kept having to call them and say, Bill in particular, okay, if I test here and I get this, will this, well, we're not sure, go ahead and do it and let us know, and then we'll let you know. So, you know, so that's part of it. The second really part of it was, it's in March, it snowed, nobody's using any water. So to get the water, to get through the system, took a long time. Now, one of the things we talked about, but we want to talk to the state about is, well, if we had offered to turn our hydrants at the end of the system and get a bunch of water out. In other words, we're flushing the system. Would that have worked, and could that have sped up, cut the time down to 5 days, right? We haven't got an answer from them, but that's part of what we're gonna meet with them and talk about. So to really get to your question. The other thing I would just mention is, so when there's, in this case, again, one of the weird things about this event was usually, because I know you had asked the question last month, Director Fuss, usually there's a pre-chlorine hit of the water, and then it comes in, and then you get coagulant on it, and you run it through your filter system, and you go out. So in this case, that motor thing, it was unchlorinated water that got in there. Normally, if there's problems in the treatment plant, you're still confident, you don't have to do boil water because you've at least got the water chlorinated. But what they did is they put in a large, a higher than normal amount, but still within the state guidelines of chlorine, so they would then test through the system to track the residuals. And as soon as the residuals was higher than normal, they knew that the slug of water had moved through the system. And so that's why we're saying, well, could you have allowed us to turn on these faucets and flush them quicker? How could we have convinced you to do that? For those things.
Yeah.
We don't have to belabor it, but that's all part of it. And I think, you know, I will just say, not to be cross-purposing a lot of things, back to Director Beaver's comment earlier about our lease on our folding machine and looking for a mail house. So one of the things I'm thinking, if we get a mail house, one of the ways we can test it is send a separate newsletter on an interesting paper to make sure we know that it's working before we only give them bills, right? So that's another thing that you could probably use this type of thing for.
Okay.
So that was one thing I was gonna ask, as we're talking about trying to save money and work on people's time, or lack thereof of collecting bills. Can you look into the folding companies which would take some of the work off of the people in the office so that we could maybe save money and increase the amount of bills we get out and get paid?
Right. Yeah, so I think that is really one of the aspects of that is really, that's why I think, you know, most districts, depending on their size, will use a mail house, and that means you basically have somebody in Reading, you send them your customer file, the bills, the newsletter, they print, they fold, they stuff, and they mail. And they're also usually able to get a better bulk rate too.
Yeah.
We still are taking advantage of the bulk rate, don't get me wrong, we're saving, we're not paying 60 cents a piece. But you, as you know, when you
Pre-sort.
when you do all the pre-sort stuff right, it saves you significantly. So yes, to Director Beaver's comments, that hopefully will be not only saving money, be more effective, but give us time also to go pursue.
So you have it listed as an action item
Well,
also?
it's a discussion item, we thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there any other questions from the floor?
About how much water did we end up having to like wait to get through, to get to that point? Because if you do the drainage of like opening up the hydrants to let it all flush, you know, yeah, it might cut it back a day or two, but how much water did we have to go through to get to that point where we were okay?
It's about 100,000 gallons.
Which is
They conjecture. There was initially probably close to a couple of million gallons, but what the staff did that night was, it was all sitting near the tank and in the conduit, so they sucked it back out and stuck it in the ponds. So those pond water now will then go back through the system and get through chlorine treated. But they figured there was probably only about 100,000, give or take.
So in a theory like that, if we didn't have to waste it, we're not like wasting a ton of.
Oh, no, you're talking a couple acre feet.
Yeah,
Right.
well, Yeah, but you gotta figure, if you have, a little fishing bobber and it's at the north tank,
You gotta push
there's a
it.
lot of water in the lines from there to your lowest part. So
Right.
you kind of wait till it gets to a point, maybe halfway, then you open up your lines to flush it out.
You wait the 2 or 3 days until, and then flush.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it in other places where, in our system, who knows, but where you kind of wait till you know it's gonna go down a canyon and it's not going this way, because you track it using your residuals, and then you flush that line, you flush these a little bit, but then you're not wasting the filters, yeah.
I appreciate you putting this together, because
Oh.
that it was, and I appreciate the staff getting together and to come up with some ideas of how to.
Yeah, they all should be pursued.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this has been something we've talked about in the past, but we did receive from LAFCO the draft municipal service review and sphere of influence for our district. It's attached. This is for us to provide comments to the LAFCO prior to them taking it to their LAFCO board meeting for approval, which I think will be at their June meeting.
Maybe, depends on what we do tonight. It may take a little bit of time to reconstitute this thing, to put it in some kind of a form to get it to the meeting in June. If it is in June, then it will be August.
So I think to that point, I listed out a few things here just for your consideration. So remember, this is LAFCO's draft municipal service review and sphere of influence. This is our opportunity to comment on their draft. And I think what Director Fuss is saying, we may be supplying more comments for them to resolve than they can resolve by June. One of our comments could be, and I've seen this done, is here's our comments, consider them, and send us a draft for another meeting in May, let's say, before you take it in June, and that's where you may not get it done before June. And then last, I would just say, Madam Chair, if any of you have something written that you would like us to do, please get that to me, because I'm not sure we want to go over word for word stuff like this. Right?
Okay.
Some of the things I'd like some input from the board: review the introduction and history for accuracy, the rate section. I believe it's accurate, but we need to make sure.
Okay.
Accountability and governance. It's got an older board list, so we need to do that. The staff list we've reviewed. The sphere of influence is a big issue that I think we need to make some comments on. I think I reported to the board before that in the first draft they sent to me for initial review, actually had a paragraph that said that we were not a disadvantaged community.
Yeah.
So my response to them was, no, you need to look at that. And they did say they refined it, and they broke out the census blocks to be more accurate, I guess, and said, oh yeah, we are a disadvantaged community. So, with that, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Well, Madam Chairman, if you were willing to take some notes, I've got some things that I'd like to go over.
That'd be great.
Okay, I do too, quite a few.
Okay, first of all,
Tell me what page you're on.
Page 5, it indicates that we've got 2,710 customers. Now, it turns out we don't have 2,710.
Well,
We have-
technically, we do.
Well, but are they really customers, paying customers, or are we looking at the accounts? What was it, 2355?
Yeah.
So should that be changed to 2355? Seems to me it ought to be.
I think it needs to be that plus the 1081 counts.
Which is
The
122.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it should not include the dummy accounts and those kind of things.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
So then you're talking 24.99. I think, if I did that right. No, 26.99.
26.99 customers?
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you get that? I thought we were talking about 23.55.
Plus 122.
I thought it was
Plus
25,
120.
I thought it was
It is
25.77.
25.77. Now remember, that's 25.77 are the number of base rates.
Oh, that's it.
So I guess this is what I wanna hear, this is why it's a good one that we brought it up.
You say
Do you want me-
27 plus the 122?
Mhm.
Okay.
Hold on.
Does the board want it to be the total number of base rates, which is your 25.77 plus 122? Or customer accounts? Because remember, we have accounts that have multiple base rates.
Mhm.
Do you know how many accounts are like that? That means 1 meter and 2 or more homes.
I think it's about 225 or so.
Right.
I personally think it should be based on meters, not necessarily customers. Although you've got people that have rentals, and so those are maybe customers if they're paying a separate bill.
They're paying a separate bill.
Yeah. So out of those 25.77, it isn't necessarily separate bills for all that 200 and, what'd you say, 50?
No.
No, and there can be 1 meter and 5 base rates on it.
Yeah, right.
Or 3 or 2.
Well, you got the trailer park.
Trailer park's got,
Oh,
As a side question to that, meters versus accounts, if we got new programming, sorry not to go off base, if we got new programming where we like press the button, it says delinquent, would there theoretically be the option to be seeing how many accounts have the same address? So if I'm a homeowner and I rent, that's gonna pull 2 accounts, that you could then narrow it down. Sorry.
absolutely. I can't imagine them not being able to be more refined.
So what would be the correct amount to put under customers? 25.77 plus the 122?
Or the number of meters,
or the number of meters.
Well,
which are connections.
asking
Yeah,
our general manager, what do you think is the best way to do this?
I think it should be meters, as customers.
However, for your trailer parks, I would argue that.
Yeah, that's why,
1 meter.
yeah.
Except, don't we have in that state fund, the addition that was approved in there of adding 400 meters strictly to put a meter on the homes in the trailer parks?
That is incorporated in the grant loan that we are pursuing.
Correct.
And which is, from what I understand, is still in progress.
The other aspect we need to understand is there are quite a few number of people who have 1 meter, but 2 or more units, and the district is not aware of that, so they're only paying 1 base rate.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
How do we
this
wanna
is
address that?
why it gets hard, because you obviously have your mobile home park example, but you also have a lot of them out there that do have 1 meter and do have 3 base rates that they're paying on, right? They've got a primary
Or
residence and 2 other
they have
houses.
1 meter, their home and a rental or 2, and they're still only paying on the base rate because they added it and never told the district.
And maybe you should stay with the 2710, right?
Probably, or at least take out the 11 dummy accounts.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the 26.99.
Yeah, 26.99.
All right, for now.
Okay, I got another thing here, on the next page, on 6, talks about other services providers, other service providers,
What paragraph? First paragraph?
on page 6.
Right, first paragraph?
What?
First paragraph?
The whole thing, other service providers.
Okay.
It goes through County Service Area 1, which is the fire department for the county. We don't use them very little in this district.
Yeah.
It doesn't even talk about the Happy Valley Fire Protection District. That's our main fire protection out here.
Mhm.
It doesn't even mention the Happy Valley School District, that's another service provider out here. Should be included. All those that are there are worthy of being in that other service providers, but included should be Happy Valley Fire Protection District and Happy Valley School District. because they do provide services in our district.
Noted. I will just mention that in my communication to my first review to George, I also said that we have other public facilities that they did not identify. Fire district, school district, and we also have a landfill
Well, you got a lighting district too.
and a lighting district.
Yeah.
So,
What about the veteran cemetery?
It's mentioned in here,
Oh, is it? Oh, that's what it is.
both the, and the dumps, both of the dumps.
Dumps in there.
all right, next.
On page 10, under water services, it indicates that, the first paragraph, water supply, and it goes down to maybe the second sentence, the district's current total allowable water allotment through the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Central Valley Project, CVP, and exchange water. What does that mean, exchange water?
You know, I'm not sure why they would put that in there.
Yeah.
There are what are referred to as exchange water contractors, but I don't believe we are an exchange
No.
water contractor.
We're just 15,300 acre feet of water. So I would say that you need to get rid of that exchange because we're CVP.
Yep.
Also, it does mention down at the end of that paragraph, it mentions that the district maintains wells for water needs. Might be advantageous, although it says it down at a different point, but it might be advantageous to put, we maintain 3 wells.
So are they listed as just for water needs or for emergency usage?
That's later on down in
Yeah.
here.
Because I think that's important verbiage.
Yeah, and it mentions it down here. But I'm just saying to be consistent with the whole thing, that since it says district maintains wells, might as well put 3 wells in there, because that's what we do.
Further down, it does say 3 wells.
Right, he's
Further
just
down.
saying to be consistent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then, let's see, paragraph 3, this is where it says the district has 3 wells in Lawrence A. Russell South District Wellfield. The wells are mostly used for emergencies and provide supplemental supply during drought years when the surface water supply is reduced. That's correct. To help the district be self-sufficient during years of water shortages, a 350,000 gallon tank was constructed in the South District Wellfield. It's not, it's at the pump station.
Ah.
There's only 3 wells at the well location.
No gallon tank down.
No tanks there at all. It's pumped from the wells up to the tanks, up to Happy Valley Road.
Old Happy
Happy Valley Road there, pump up to that tank and then into the pump station area. Pump station pulls it up. Demand. It says under demand, it says the district currently serves 2,365 customers. Shouldn't we be consistent with the 2710?
Yeah, I highlighted that number, because that's clearly,
Not 2710, but 2699.
Yeah, that-
2699, yes.
clearly when there's a customer section, and I think at one point they actually asked how many accounts there were, and that's how many basically it shows.
And it says, the Bureau of Reclamation allocates 15,300 acre feet per year to the district, and I just added by contract, just to say by contract. And I think we need to spell that out, because I don't want to let anybody get the impression that it's the largesse of the Bureau of Reclamation that we get 15,300 acre feet. It's by contract that we get 15,300 acre feet.
So if we stay on that same part that you were on, that he was on, under that demand, what I didn't like there, it says the amount of water delivered and billed in 2022 was 1,800 acre feet. But that wasn't Bureau water, we didn't get any Bureau water in 2022. And so I just
Ah,
was,
you're right, that's right, that's a little deceiving, isn't it?
yeah,
The amount of water delivered and billed in 2022 was 1,800 acre feet. I guess what you can say is, which consisted of,
McConnell.
purchased water from McConnell and well water.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Just to clarify that was, because up above it says, you know, the Bureau of Reclamation allocated it,
Yeah,
so. And there was something in one of these two, and I'll see if I can't find it later, but it says the water was reduced in 2022. No, the water wasn't reduced in 2022, the water was eliminated in 2022.
Right. Real quick, should we just say at the end of that sentence?
Okay.
1,800 acre feet, purchased and well water, purchased water and well water. I mean, do we want to say that it was purchased from McConnell or just leave it as generic? Like we could say
The
McConnell.
amount of water delivered.
No, I think purchase, because in past years, we've purchased from other entities. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
purchased water and well water.
The amount of water delivered and billed in 2022 was 1,800 feet, which was purchased and,
purchased water.
And well water.
and
Or
well water.
purchased from outside entities, so that we're not saying we purchased from McConnell.
or that we
I mean,
purchased
not
from the
McConnell,
Bureau.
From the Bureau.
Yeah.
Yeah, just from outside entities.
Okay.
On page 11, under rates, it talks about, let's go to paragraph 2. Says a charge of $7.55 is charged for filtration plant repayment to all active and inactive service, including each additional unit. The rate also applies to hydrant meter installations. A backwash recycle project fee of 38 cents will be billed. It is billed. You can get rid of wherever it says will, just put down is. Because we're paying that now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
is
not
billed.
gonna be billed in the future.
80% was our.
Same thing for the Wind Act reserve.
Yep, all of that, where it says you will be billed, no, we're being billed.
Better. On the top of page 12, it states that it was zero water
Which
from the
one,
Bureau and that we
which
purchased
one
it
was that
from
again?
the-
We're not there yet.
I know, but I'm just, you're discussing something that is then discussed on the following page, where it states it was zero water from the Bureau and that we purchased from McConnell.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's what she's.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, I see what you're
I
saying.
missed it.
And then down here at the bottom, it says table 2, Clear Creek water use rates. What are those?
Yeah, those rates are
You
not,
might as well just take that whole thing out of there, that doesn't apply to us at all.
well, and then it also says they were adopted on July 1,
Yeah,
2022.
we didn't do that.
No, yeah.
I don't know where they got that,
Yeah, I don't either.
just scratch that out of there.
I had it originally highlighted because I didn't understand if maybe that was something we had given them in the past or.
No,
Okay.
no,
But
you know what I think that was left in there from a previous MSR from some other district.
I agree with you, that's what I think too.
I think that's what it was.
But while we're still on page 11,
Yes, go ahead.
and 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph, the rate for M&I is 5 cents per 100 HCF
Oh,
for the
yeah.
CVP and 0.25. I thought somewhere else in this document, it says 6 cents and 0.27, which is almost in 3 cents. And I don't see that I've got that. So I think it's,
Might check that out.
We'll check it, but here's one little, I think editing that needs to happen. I don't think it's per 100 HCF.
No, I think you're right.
It's per HCF. In other words, that's, if you
Yeah.
wanted to say per 100 CF,
yeah,
okay. But if you say 100 HCF,
Yeah,
that's
right.
100 times the 0.05.
correct.
It's per HCF. Good catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, per HCF. Let me take a look at this. And well, on page 12, at the bottom of the first paragraph, it talks about the demand for the district's 2,710 customers.
Yeah.
It's really 26.
Yeah.
What was that again?
99.
99, yeah.
And that's the paragraph that says, as a result of the reduced water allocation.
Yes.
And somehow just,
And as a result of the reduced water
yeah,
allocation.
wasn't reduced, eliminated.
Let's see, the same water supply. Contract. Yeah, okay. That paragraph about the water shortage policy summary,
I didn't like that either.
yeah, I have a problem with it. But I think those numbers that are in there are the numbers that you have told us about, because that's what, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna suggest that we just maybe ask them to put something in here that says that this is the district's policy as of, it was adopted in January of 2010. That way it's kind of subtly telling them that we can't edit this now. I mean, we'd have to update our policy to fix something that's this old.
Well, what I didn't like was that, it's talking about the environmental assessment, saying that our public health and safety water supply is 3,000 acre feet of water. And that environmental assessment gives us that, or gives us an assessment of 8,000, and they give us nothing.
Yeah.
And our well water, we couldn't even produce 3,000 acre feet of water in a year. So I just, it's just the games that gets played.
What do you got a suggestion on how to change that?
It's probably, well, that's probably what it says in writing, that says what they're supposed to do, that just doesn't mean that's what they do.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, you see, that's the thing. And a lot of this, when you're talking about a municipal service review, is what the district can actually provide. And if you build a golden assessment of it, then they can't provide it.
Right.
And LAFCO has to look at this as a limiting sort of a situation where this district can only do this much and no more unless you change it somehow. But if you picture paint a golden picture of it, then the future LAFCOs will get the impression that maybe, well, heck, these guys have a lot of water.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't.
And we don't.
So one of the things you can say about that then is the M&I water shortage policy environmental assessment identifies Clear Creek Community Services District Public Health and Safety water supply as 3,000 acre feet, 3,000 whatever. The A gives the district a total allocation of 8,000 acre feet per year, subject to Bureau of Reclamation shortage policy. Would that?
That makes sense to me.
Subject to Bureau of Reclamation shortage policy.
Yeah.
That puts a kind of okay, but.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I agree with that. That should take care of it.
Well, again, a lot of this is taken right out of our old.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's true,
So
that's true.
I can't fault them for
Oh, no.
saying what we have here.
No.
I just think, that's why I was saying that even if it's saying, identifying how old our policy is that this is taken from, but I think Director Fust has suggested a really good one, because there's caveats clearly that these
Yeah,
are.
it's gotta be, at one time, we were doing great, and then a drought came along, and that kind of put the limits on things. We gotta let people know that in the future, that, hey, this district can provide water, but we don't have limitless supply of water.
Correct.
1, 2, 3, 4, about the fourth paragraph down on page 12. So stage 1 of the plan seeks to obtain a 10% reduction through voluntary. The district communicates the stage 1 items with customers through billing inserts, newspaper advertising, and verbal communication, and also the website.
Mhm. That's in the policy, that's in the drought policy.
Yeah, I'm not sure that in 2010, our drought policy identified the website, but we should, at least.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh, that's what you wanted to add, was website?
Yeah, we might as well.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, website.
Make it current.
On page 13, says financial overview. Clear Community Services, this is primarily funded through water sales, that's correct. The district's current and other assets were $1,306,000. And I would think that you'd want to put in there, according to the 21-22 audit, so that you have something that you can focus on, because just the 1,306,000, where'd that come from?
Yeah, this is all numbers out of the FY 21 audit, the one that we just
audit, yeah.
sent
And I
them.
think, I think it should be pointed out that that's what it is.
Yes, okay.
Well, it says it earlier, but it doesn't hurt to put it in again.
And the same thing, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, where they talk about district's total operating revenues according to the 21 budget, audit, expenses were blah, blah, blah. Then the next paragraph, the district had an audit performed for fiscal year 2021 and 22. 2021, 22. We haven't done the 22, 23 yet. We're in the process of doing that now. Let's see. On debt, no debt. The Clear Creek CSD budgets, have you had an opportunity to take a look at that and see if those figures bear out?
I have not.
Okay.
I didn't understand the general property tax of $5,000.
Yeah, oh, that's right, yeah.
Again,
That's not correct.
again, we will definitely kind of do a deeper dive on this.
Yeah,
I have a sneaking suspicion that some of this is carryover from another
yeah, it
district's
could
audit.
be. Now, some of these figures look a lot smaller than they should be.
Right. Well, property taxes and.
Yeah, well,
And again, when you get, they even have an account number, 4100 for a water sale, I mean, where they that?
Yeah.
and then on page 15, I think it's proper now to scratch Chuck Jones off of there and put Terry Lincoln as the vice chair and put Pam Beaver as the member of the board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Staff looks good, right?
Right.
That looks proper.
So go back to page 15.
Go ahead. Which
So-
one, 15?
Yeah, that's where you
Okay.
were just at.
Yeah.
What I didn't like, so it's 1, 2, third paragraph down. The district maintains various reserves consistent with the reserve
Oh, yeah.
policy.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we want to, yeah, we strive to, but are we doing that? We are not maintaining that.
No, we're not.
So I don't,
I don't know how to, I hear what you're saying.
I
I think
think-
what we're trying to do is build a reserve now, but we're not there yet.
no, we're not there.
So I think, let's see if we can come up with an edit. I think what they did is they grabbed this off of our old 2008.
Sure.
Website reserve policy, and I think we should include in here reserves like the backwash pond payment reserve and the Wind Act reserve.
Yeah, so we do,
Yeah.
yeah.
Restricted accounts.
And some of those are restricted accounts, and then, I don't know where they got these names, but we.
Yeah. That was way back when.
And then with the standing committees, they must have been looking at something old, and, because we no longer have an executive committee.
Oh, right.
We currently still have the other.
Personal planning and steering, yep.
Yeah, my notes say that we need to replace that with an ag committee.
Oh, right, that's right.
Yeah.
It's not identified.
Yeah.
We still have an ag committee.
And then the last
We
paragraph,
don't have a personnel committee anymore.
Don't have
Yes.
a person.
we haven't voted on that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
still have it.
We still have it at this point.
Technically, we do.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking about that at a later meeting.
Last paragraph, just for clarification, it says, the manager, confidential employee for each department is in charge of hiring with approval from the general manager. Is that in the manuals? Because I don't think it is.
Say this again?
So it says the manager, so we'll just use Bill as an example. For each department is in charge of hiring, so Bill is in charge of hiring his employees with approval from you. Roberto is in charge of hiring the distribution one person. Is that what you're telling me?
Technically, yes.
Okay, is that in any of the manuals? Because I don't think it is. I think the hiring in the administrative manuals says that you are the
We have an administrative name?
very old one.
We have an MOU, that's it. We need to just modify that.
Yeah, I just
Didn't you
didn't
say
like
they
it.
Basically, what's that?
Didn't you say they weren't technically managers?
Yeah, that's true too.
Supervisors.
Yeah, they were supervisors, and so the way it works is they interview, they make recommendations, we hire and fire.
Yeah, so if we can change the wording on that, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, and this is a convoluted sentence anyway, so it needs to be clarified.
Let's see, on page 16, let's see, where are we at here? Oh, they talk about under 3, present planned capacity of public facilities and adequacy of public services, including infrastructure needs or deficiencies. They don't even mention Happy Valley Fire Department, but they mention County Service Area 1. County Service Area 1 doesn't provide fire services to but a tiny part of our district. Most of our district is provided fire services by the Happy Valley Fire Protection District.
What?
I should mention that in there.
Well, my question was, where's Station 52? And that's
Oh,
what it
yeah.
says, Station 52.
Yeah.
Station 52 has a joint use agreement with the district for partial use of the building.
Yeah.
What the heck does that
I
mean?
think Station 52 is out by the airport, isn't that the one by the airport?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And we
they,
don't have anything to do with that anymore.
See, I think this is another one where.
from the city of Anderson that they were doing, maybe. Okay.
Where did this document come from?
The LAFCO.
LAFCO, Municipal Service Review. It's an update of an older document.
It figures.
On page 17, under B, let me see what it says. In July 2022, the district passed new water rates. Residential base rates range from, here we go again, $30 to $30.50. That's not correct.
Based on meter sizes, some of it
Yeah.
says,
Yeah.
and it's not.
It's
My
not.
note is this is a carryover from
Yeah,
the one.
Yeah, just not correct.
Yep, it's not that bad.
Because in previous, they have the correct base rate plus usage rate and stuff.
But we
Yeah.
should include in this our current rates.
Do you want the current 5605 or the change on July 1 to
Current,
5711?
because this is all, well,
Yeah,
Well, it would show it in there.
okay. Maybe it says, and will adjust annually on the 1st of July.
Yeah.
And then I have a question on C.
yep,
It says, the ACID contains less than 5% of Eastern Clear Creek Community Services District within their boundary, and SOI. I'm not sure exactly where that is, but, okay. They provide Bella Vista Water District, the City of Shasta Lake, and Shasta CSD with supplemental water through long-term agreements. We tried to get water from them at one time, and we couldn't. Said, this is a sentence that doesn't make sense to me. This may be a potential opportunity for full municipal services to Clear Creek Community Service District. What does that mean?
You wanna read what mine says?
What?
What does this mean?
Oh my God, what does this mean? What is that? So,
Be nice if we had their contract now, $24 a customer, $1 an acre foot.
Yeah.
But they got a lot of lawsuits they gotta face.
so you could get rid of that sentence and,
Yeah, we,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. What are they trying to say?
yeah, I mean, I think part of it is, this is under 5, status of and opportunities for shared facilities. And as you know, one of LAFCO's requirements is if you have services, they are supposed to encourage districts to look at what's around them, what they could work with. And I suggest, if they're not making a point, which they're not, we should just remove the
I
paragraph.
think you're right.
I think what they're trying to say is it's an opportunity for us to purchase water from ACID.
We can't. I mean, well, who knows what's gonna happen in the future? But in the past, we've tried and can't do
Yeah.
it. And the decision was usually made by the Bureau of Reclamation, as I recall. I'm thinking back here in the foggy brain, so. But as far as ACID, they're completely different than we are. We have water in pipes that we send to houses. They have water in
Ditches.
in
Untreated.
That's all.
Raw water.
No connection to us whatsoever as far as service water. So I think you're right. I think you just eliminate that. There you go. In B, it says, the Centerville, Iowa, Ono, Clear Creek, and Shasta CSDs are all located in the same geographic area of Shasta County and all provide a single service. Shasta CSD still provides fire service as of right now. Probably in June or August, there's gonna be a divestiture of the fire service from Shasta CSD, and then that will be correct.
Will Cal Fire take it over?
No, it's gonna, they're forming their own
They're
district,
gonna do their.
forming a fire protection district out there. And they're on their way to do that. They've gone through all of the LAFCO processes to form the district, to set the boundaries. They now have to go to the county. The county now has to order an election for the 5-member board.
Right.
And part of that is to also ask the people in the district to assess themselves an extra amount of money.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Good.
So we'll see what happens. But there seems to be, we've had at LAFCO, we've had lots of people from that district come to LAFCO, and they're just tying them up, ready to go with that fire protection district. They want to get away from Shasta CSD. I don't blame them.
I agree. Yeah.
Shasta CSD, over the years, and they've always had trouble out at Shasta, because the money comes in, it's commingled all in one pot, and then the board gives a little bit over here to the fire department, and a lot over here to the water company. Oh, wait a minute, that thing is recording, isn't it? They shouldn't have said that.
It'll be on YouTube tomorrow.
I think we're probably okay with that,
I think-
leaving it
yeah.
as is, since it's gonna change.
Yeah. And 6, the accountability of community services needs, including governmental structure and operation. And it doesn't mention the Clear Creek Community Services District, single service provider. It talks about including fire services through CSA1. There again, needs to mention Happy Valley Fire Protection District, because that's our main fire department here. And we don't, you know, CSA1, the fire district for the Shasta County Fire Department, plays a very small part in our district. And again, on 18, under present and planned land uses in the area, it does not mention Happy Valley Fire Department. Talks about CSA 1, but not Happy Valley Fire Department.
So CSA 1 then, because it says, is that to the south, is that the one on Gas Point Road?
CSA 1?
Yeah, so it
Well,
says,
CSA 1 is all over the county that isn't, any part of the county that isn't, under the jurisdiction of a city or a fire protection district.
okay, because it says Shasta County Fire Department Station 5 to
Yeah,
the,
I don't know where
to
that
the
is.
south.
I think that's the one on Happy Valley Road, actually.
You mean Gas Point Road?
I mean Gas Point Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking
Oh,
that's,
okay.
I was gonna drive by there and
Could
see
be
what the
that's West
sign
Valley.
said.
That says doesn't it say West Valley?
West Valley.
Yeah.
But that's CSA 1, that's a volunteer fire department under CSA 1. And since we have some, that property down there in our district by the high school, that's part of it, yeah. And there are mutual and automatic agreements between our fire department and CSA 1 and CAL FIRE. That's all I had, I think. Oh, wait a minute, I have more. No, that's it. Yeah, down here on page 19, under the last paragraph, A, the city of Anderson overlaps Clear Creek Community Services District SOI. I don't think it does.
yeah, well, that's one of the things we need to go over is that map.
Yeah.
Because it is, because they're saying it is proposed this overlap be removed from our sphere of influence.
Right, giving it to Anderson. We
So,
were discussing.
Yeah, that's what we were discussing before.
so see right here, I think they're
It's
talking
right,
about,
it's right here.
yeah,
On page 8, yes. on the
Yeah.
Far right-hand side of the map, right about in the
All
middle.
this property up in here is the 3,000 acres that was supposed to be North Fork Ranch.
right.
And then North Fork Ranch bought this piece of property down here,
Coming
but
down.
we didn't have it in our sphere.
Right,
Now we have it in our sphere, and they extended it down this way. And it's part of our sphere here. Anderson is down further, they're on the east side, and Anderson is down further, and there's no man's land in the middle, except for Verdieville subdivision. And we had discussions about that years ago with Anderson, when North Fork Ranch came up, and nobody wanted Verdieville subdivision.
well, but they're saying under A, that overlap should be removed from our sphere.
Yeah, as long as, and if that's over here, that's fine, but as long as we keep this area here.
But how do we know?
Yeah, well,
Well, that's what we've got to clarify,
yeah,
is geographically, what action is we want to maintain in our SOI.
we can talk to George Williamson about that.
Because that's a chance for the district to grow.
Yeah, and that's the only way that if somebody decides to do it, I think Sandy remembers North Fork Ranch.
Oh, yeah.
I remember it.
And at one time, when they first put North Fork Ranch together and had a map approved by the county, they were gonna funnel all the traffic into a Linda Road, Happy Valley Road. My God, it was a nightmare. And so they went back, the owners of the property went back and bought the property down in 273. And the next map that came out funneled all the traffic down to
Right down through
273.
there, correct. But they were supposed to put in 3 wells, weren't they?
They were supposed to put in 3 wells.
Right.
They did. There were failures.
Oh.
Yes,
They should have put them in Spring Gulch, but they.
it never really got off the ground, so to speak, you know.
Just before the housing crunch, 2008.
Yeah, I think they got their map approved in like
Yeah.
07, 08, 09.
And then everything.
And then,
No,
it all fell apart.
This,
I have a copy of that map. I drew all the trails on it and all the roads.
that's cool.
They were gonna have an equestrian center over on the north
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
Wow, that's,
and big plans for that, and that was where the sewer plant was gonna be too.
Just
And we would spray it all over the oak trees.
well, if we ever start to grow again up here, you're gonna see that, some pressure being put on that property to develop again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, our general manager wishes to speak.
Well, I think a lot of the other things we need to go through, and any other comments we welcome.
I don't know.
Page 19, which refers basically to page 8, there's a couple of things. One, I think we need to ask them, why are they proposing to remove the overlap portion from our sphere of influence?
Oh,
And
yeah.
can they give us some real justification for that reason? By doing that, they're de facto saying it's okay for Anderson to overreach into our area. So, I mean, that? Obviously, as Director Fuss has said, in some ways, I'm okay with them doing that as long as there's a reason and as long as, if that means Anderson has to take the subdivision, hallelujah,
They don't want it. They don't want it.
They don't want it.
So that's the thing. But I think it's interesting that nobody said anything about 5B, that says no disadvantaged unincorporated communities in the existing SOI.
Oh,
yes.
When previously, they just identified
Yeah,
that the
okay.
district has disadvantaged communities. I think we need to push back and say, well,
No, they said in the existing sphere of influence. Doesn't that just mean
The SOI,
just the
that
area?
yellow area,
Yeah, I didn't make mine in color. So they're just, are they just saying the outer areas?
I think so. But again,
But this
I am
really
somewhat
influence
familiar
here.
with Cortese Knox,
I don't think that's a correct statement.
because
I mean,
if they said there are no disadvantaged communities in the areas between the district boundaries and the SOI, that would be a
Okay,
probably correct statement.
okay,
But technically, your SOI should be inclusive of also your district boundaries. So it
Correct.
means the whole district
district.
plus. So I'm just gonna say we should edit that and say,
okay,
there's no disadvantaged communities, between the existing district boundaries and the existing SOI.
okay.
That's why.
That's all.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments for Paul that we didn't bring up?
it's been fairly well covered.
So let me just suggest, I'm gonna do the best I can. I think they sent this in a Word document. Do you know? I think so. What I'm thinking about doing is going in and doing a big old red line, based on what we have here, and sending it to everybody for your input.
Okay.
And I'm also gonna send it to, George, say, here's, you might wanna answer for yourself on a few of these things, these are our, and see what he says, and then I'm probably gonna tell him, we're not ready to send you this back until we come back for our May meeting.
Yeah, and he'll be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
He'll be okay.
Yeah, I
with
think
that.
so too, yeah.
Well, he won't be around.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, he's retiring,
He's
and,
retired.
Is that right?
yeah, in June, and the office manager
Quit.
retired,
Just quit.
quit in April, so first of the month.
So
Hey.
they're right now, the George Williamson and our attorney for NAFCO are recruiting for an office manager. Once they get an office manager, the old office manager will train the new office manager, and they're still going through an RFP for a contract executive officer.
Yeah, well, I believe George has been the contract one for a while, but he's also for a couple other
7 or 8
outfits.
years now.
Isn't he doing work for other outfits?
Yeah,
I
so,
mean, he's
yeah, Humboldt,
sweeping over.
Mendocino.
Yeah.
I think one of his, because his outfit is a corporation, and part of his corporation, does LAFCO for Trinity County too.
Yeah. All right, so that's my plan. I've taken your
Okay.
input. We're gonna do the best we can to provide all that, get that to you, and then obviously look for some feedback from you all. And then probably get something from George before he leaves, and then get it back to our May meeting.
We've been at this for 3 hours, is there the possibility of a short break to stretch our
That's a
legs?
good idea.
I know, plenty of people in the audience that have been very patiently.
5 minutes? You want
Yes.
5? So 5 after 9, okay?
Chance
We're
to
gonna take
stretch.
just a short break. You wanna turn this off, or will that speed things up? Or no?
Okay.
I'm feeling the same.
So you can suggest a song.
Yeah.
We could have done it in 2 hours or 2.5 or whatever.
Oh, when I get stiff, I just stand up.